water rapids. You can have a road you go down that's full of potholes in a car with bad suspension and flat tyres. I don't know why they're bothering building a theme park in this country. They're going right, no one will be able to afford to go to it anyway.
How about the Rachel Reeves ride, says Terry in Birmingham. You go round and round and vanish up your own deficit. It's the HS2 ride. It travels at high speed for 10 feet, where everyone gets off and into the replacement bus ride. Tickets are £50 if bought 5 months in advance, or £1,000 on the day.
There's a strong rumour going round that Rachel Reeves is going to have a kissing booth for this theme park. So what I do, mate, I shove a £5 in a pot and you can go in and fill your boots.
Thank you very much indeed, and very generous of you. One from G, who says fast-track entry to every ride for illegals, plus a free night stay in the Parks Hotel and free food. New theme park bumper cars will have to pay a congestion charge, and the funhouse isn't built yet, despite Angela Rayner's pledge to build houses. What about Ghost Train doesn't move because the driver's on strike? Have a good day. This is brilliant for the theme park. How about grow your own cannabis farm? Yeah, that's a good one. An Ethiopian safari park narrated by Angela Rayner, says Gary in Durham. How about that? This sums up the Labour Party to me. The one idea they have to improve growth for the economy is to basically have a bloody big fun fair. It's the type of idea primary school children would pitch, given 10 minutes to come up with something. Well, it turns out, Matt, in Royston, that it's not even their idea. But they're now trying to claim it's their idea, even though it was actually the Tories.
They have done brilliantly on breakfast, but you know on Drive you've done brilliantly as well. Downhill slide ride surrounded by ULEZ cameras so that people are fined on exit. Love it. You could have a Birmingham-themed whack the rat stall. If you whack the rat, you can have your bin emptied for free. On the Labour theme park, a house of mirrors where they're all boarded up because they can't bear to look themselves in the eye.
I've got a great one for you, mate.
This is for the is this for the Universal theme park run by Labour?
Moat right around the park.
Yeah.
With loads of dinghies. Call it the channel and say anyone who can break in, all is free.
Imagine a Scouser say you can break into a theme park for free.
Hi, Jeremy. Hey, it's simple. You've got the Labour ghost train.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is...
A very, very good morning to you. Well, it is for me and it is for you because, especially for those of us in the southeast, I know the rest of the country does exist, but it's a little bit cooler for us today. Well, by about 10 degrees. It's all become bearable, although I have to say it looks apocalyptically miserable outside the studio window this morning. But at least we are not sweltering hot. So let's thank the Lords for that. The climate gods, indeed, for that. But not necessarily such a good morning for Keir Starmer, and we'll get to that. So whether you are listening to us here at Talk at the Home of Common Sense on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, whether you're watching on YouTube or your connected device, it is fabulous to have your company. I hope you're not sweltering too much anymore. Don't forget, if you do miss any of the show, you have to, I don't know, go to work, do something useful. Do take a look at our YouTube page, not just YouTube page for Talk, but there's also the Julia Hartley-Brewer Show YouTube page. Easy to find. The name is on the tin. It does exactly what it says on the side of the tin. If you hit subscribe, then you'll never miss a thing. So coming up in this hour, it will not surprise you that we will be discussing Keir Starmer winning last night's vote on his welfare reform bill. I say winning. I mean, I'm stretching that word an awful lot because there was a most humiliating set of U-turns. One came in the last 90 minutes before the vote actually happened on his planned crackdown on personal independence payments. It's in the name of the bill, but it doesn't actually involve any reform of claimants for personal independence payments. That's how much of a clampdown it was. Crunch vote, though, was basically saved by the fact that they did stave off that rebellion just enough. But 49 Labour rebel MPs voted against the motion, and another bunch abstained as well, even though it was watered down, where the saving of some £5 billion from the welfare bill will now become, oh, guess what, a cost to taxpayers. So what taxes will go up in the autumn in Rachel Reeves' next budget to pay for all that? We'll wait and see. Plus, in ordinary, expected news, we have seen a record number of small boat migrants. This time, the latest figure is the 20,000 small boat migrants recorded crossing the Channel in the first half of this year. Of course, now we're in July. We know exactly how many people have come from January to June. Nearly 900 arrived in Dover from France on Monday alone. Also, 3 former bosses at the hospital where Lucy Letby murdered 7 babies and attempted to murder 7 more have been arrested on suspicion of gross negligence manslaughter. That was announced yesterday, discussed it on the show yesterday. But meanwhile, Cheshire Police have announced that they are investigating the killer nurse over, more murders and more attempted murders of babies. And they've now passed a file of evidence to the Crown Prosecution Service involving more charges. We'll be talking about that as well. Do welcome your thoughts on all of the topics we're going to talk about, including Trump's, big, beautiful bill. We're going to be talking about the extraordinary number of babies being born to at least one foreign parent in this country. But of course, those welfare reforms that really aren't reforms at all, abject failing of the government, total humiliation of the Prime Minister. I want to hear your thoughts on that. Caving into rebel Labour MPs over the flagship welfare reforms, yet another humiliating U-turn. It's going to cost us a fortune in tax. What's your reaction? Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Get in touch with us on X at talkTV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text costs £1, standard network rate message. Delighted to say, joining me throughout the show, as always on Wednesdays, Claire Pearsall, former Conservative Government advisor. You worked in the Home Office, Claire, but you were now working for the Deputy Speaker. You were a Conservative. You were out there. You were in the Commons chamber for the debate, for the vote announcement, but also on the Commons terrace, watching and listening to what was going on. There is no doubt at all. I mean, humiliating U-turn after humiliating U-turn for this Prime Minister. This is a man in office and not in power. He is devoid of all authority now. He says he's taken his eye off the ball because he's been dealing with foreign stuff. This is a man who cannot multitask, it would appear. There's the humiliating U-turn and climb down, Sunday, Monday, that we announced from Liz Kendall, the Work and Pension Secretary. She says in the Commons very clearly yesterday, that's as much as we're going to do. There will be no more changes to the bill. 90 minutes before the vote was due to take place, they still thought the rebellion was going to be so large, even with a... And again, it's like there's a working majority, there's a simple majority, but basically 166. Around that figure is what they've got in terms of working majority. Effective majority of 156. Stephen Timms, one of the welfare ministers, basically backtracks even more. So even though this bill is literally called the Universal Credit and Personal Independence Payment Bill, there is now nothing in that bill that actually changes anything in terms of who can and cannot claim and what the criteria are to claim PIP, personal independence payment. This was a humiliating defeat, wasn't it?
It was, and he should have seen this coming from last week when you had 120 or however many Labour MPs signing a letter stating that they were going to vote against it. So this should have come as absolutely no surprise at all. Why wasn't he speaking to those people earlier? Why did they not just do all of the consultation process first? And I think that if you're going to
have a plan before they came into government? He's had 4 years. We've known about this problem for at least 2. It's been top of the agenda.
Yeah, but I think that is largely his problem, is that they campaigned so hard to win an election. What they didn't plan for was to be in government. So they kind of rocked up on the 5th of July and went, now we actually have to do something. And they haven't quite worked out what it is they want to do, because Keir Starmer is devoid of any kind of strategy, personal philosophy, any kind of being good at politics, out of the window. He is a middle manager, in my opinion.
And not a very good one.
Not a very good one. One that you would just get rid of from the insurance company when you could. Yeah. So yesterday was catastrophic for the Labour Party. It really was. And just watching the chaos unfold, I mean, I do live for days like this, to be perfectly honest, because the politics of it was really, really interesting. In the afternoon, before any of the concessions had actually been given, Labour ministers and whips were out on the terrace looking for backbenchers to see if they could have a little chat with them, to see how they were going to vote. Is there anything that they could do? And I haven't seen that kind of operation for some time.
They're actually bothering to live. There's an element, isn't there, when you get a very big majority. This happened Friday. This Friday is the first anniversary of this massive big majority. I mean, 411 MPs were elected in July last year for Labour. And there is an element actually where you think, well, they can do anything they want. There's also an element where, you kind of get a free pass as a backbencher. The odds of you ever make it into government are probably pretty limited. Right now, looking at the polls, a lot of those MPs are going, I'm not going to get get re-elected anyway. But you say, look, this is a disaster for the Labour Party. Well, no, these Labour backbenchers, this is a victory. I didn't get elected to cut welfare benefits for my constituents who vote for me because I encourage the government to spend other people's money on welfare benefits. The key thing about this is, if this is a Prime Minister who cannot convince his own party that the state of the public finances is such, and by the way, Labour and the Tory, Labour contributed to small matter of the economic crisis in 2008, 2009, which is the reason why Tories got in the first place. And all the things that happened since, lockdowns and all of that, Labour, they're up to the eyeballs in this as well. But if they genuinely don't think that we need to be cutting the welfare bill, which is ballooning off the scale, they are completely out of touch themselves. This idea that, you should consult with disability groups. Oh, disability groups say we don't want to cut disability benefits. Shocker. They would say that, wouldn't they? But the whole point of these reforms is not to cut benefits for people who are disabled. Yeah. It's to stop people who are not disabled, who do not need those benefits, from claiming those benefits. That is the issue. There are millions of people who should not be claiming these benefits, who are claiming these benefits, who don't really need them. That is the issue. But if you're going to immediately have someone sitting in a wheelchair who obviously does need financial help to live a worthwhile, good life, and we should absolutely be helping them to do so. That's what I pay my taxes for a civilised society with a welfare state. But if you're going to literally wheel out someone in a wheelchair every time and say this is awful, as opposed to a 20-year-old who just feels a bit anxious on a Monday morning, doesn't want to go to work, and therefore is claiming PIP, then we're never going to resolve this.
But we're not, and the Labour Party, in its sort of very finite structure, would always look to increase the welfare state. That's kind of what they're there to do.
Put everyone on the payroll.
Absolutely.
No, that's what it is. Put everyone on the payroll.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're claiming benefits, you're claiming welfare of any sort, why would you vote anything but Labour?
You wouldn't. The Tories were always looked at as the evil, nasty party whenever you start to make benefit changes. Ian Duncan Smith had this with universal credit, and I think he was on the right track.
Well, Labour didn't change anything and never pledged to change anything. Exactly. They said it was awful, but they've accepted it all. Exactly. I wonder why, because it was actually a really good reform.
But what they cannot understand is money has to come from somewhere. If you rule out tax rises...
Yes, the magic money tree.
Is that what it is?
So we go shake it in the corner. You go and shake that tree. No, those people over there. Yeah. Those wealthy people, the 1% who are already paying a third of all taxes in this country, those people are going to pay more. They're not going to leave the country. They're just going to keep happily paying more for people who aren't working. Of course they are.
I mean, it's hysterical. Whenever you say that to a Labour MP and say, but all of these people are leaving and they are projected to leave by the end of the year, and they just go, no, they're not.
I mean, they literally do.
They are.
and when taxes go up to a certain point, I mean, this isn't just about the abject failure of public policy. Yeah. A key platform of the so-called change that Keir Starmer said he would bring. It was fairly loose change. We weren't really sure what change it was, other than a small change in our pocket being taken in more tax rises, as we're expecting this autumn. But the key thing about the Prime Minister is that he said he's got the authority. He's got this massive majority. He claims he's got this big sort of mandate. I mean, just under 34% of the population. He has a democratic, electoral mandate. He doesn't have the moral mandate. He doesn't have the support of the people. But what this has really exposed is this is a Prime Minister who has, in my view, no policies, nothing he believes in, no strategy. He has no ideas. He had no plan. He's got no ideology, no philosophy, no moral mission about what he wants to do as Prime Minister. He's got no backbone. He's got no stomach for the fight. He's got no political insight, no instincts, no nous. He's got no management skills. He is, and I put this out last night, he's an empty suit. And he didn't even buy that suit himself. He got Lord Ali to buy that suit. And this is the thing, he's just an empty vessel. There is nothing there. He could just dissolve. If you poured water over him, Keir Starmer would dissolve. There's nothing there. He doesn't believe in anything. He doesn't stand for anything. He just wanted to be Prime Minister. It's another little line on his CV. Yeah. And there's no point to him. And these Labour backbenchers, they understand that. And they're like, I'm just going to get through whatever I can get through in the hope that I can keep my seat. Some of them as wrong as I think they are on the welfare issue, and as wrong as I think they are on the tax issue, and as wrong as I think they are on many, many issues, at least have a purpose and have a cause and a moral mission.
Yes.
I think they are misguided in what they want to do, because I don't think putting everyone on the welfare payroll and expecting 3 billionaires to pay for everything is going to work out that well. But at least they stand for something.
Yeah.
But if you could think of, I mean, there's a question. What does Keir Starmer stand for? I mean, other than for his tailor when he's being measured for another suit costing £6,000 paid for by his mate Lord Ali. But I mean, he doesn't stand for anything. And this has been exposed. And the U-turn after U-turn after U-turn that he's done, there's nothing there.
No, there isn't. And he's now got an emboldened set of backbenchers who are looking at it saying, well, what are you going to do with us? You're not going to sack us all, because then your working majority goes right down. We're never going to get a job anyway. Some of them know they're probably only going to be there for one term. So they've got nothing to lose, absolutely nothing to lose.
And that's the thing.
And now they can push everything to this kind of vote again.
And here we go. We'll have the budget in the autumn, and Rachel Reeves got to find another £5 billion. That's the amazing thing. These reforms were pitiful anyway. They were only going to save maximum £5 billion a year. But one of the things that has been kept in, not the cutting of the costs and the number of people being able to claim, not even in the future, but and people now, but not even people in the future. They're going to have the Stephen Timms review, and there's no way at the end of this review they're going to say, yes, we should cut a load of claimants. They're just going to allow everyone to keep on going. Genuinely, if you decide you want to live on the payroll of everyone else, get your claims. You've got a couple of years, no problem. Get your claims in now, because you're never going to be questioned on them. I mean, there's no question at all about that. But not only are we not going to save that £5 billion, is going to cost money, because one of the bits of the bill that did go through is actually more help for getting people back to work, which is a good thing, and I would encourage that. But there's no long-term plan to cut anything else, in which case, there we are in a situation where we're going to spend more money, but we haven't got more money coming in. Taxes are going to have to go up, or something else is going to have to be cut, and that's the reality.
And the chief spinner this morning, Pat McFadden, out on the media rounds, saying that there were going to be financial consequences. Well, there's your tax rises coming in. He's not even hiding it. That's what they're going to do. But
the backbench MPs think the financial consequences are always for those rich people over there. Yeah. They don't realise you actually can't pay for this scale of welfare and the defence spending, if and when that ever happens, and all the other things they want, pay rises for everyone in the NHS and every train driver. Yeah. You can't do that without taxing ordinary working people more. That £5 billion, I mean, was it equivalent of 1% on basic income tax?
That's it.
That's a lot of money. And it's not 1 pence extra pay. You're paying a lot of extra money to pay for that. I mean, it is genuinely mind-blowing. That money is going to have to be found. Before we go to a break, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Calls already coming in, not surprisingly, 0344 499 1000. But also these figures that 20,000 small boat migrants arrived so far this year. That's the figures for January to June. It's another record. The smashing of the gangs not going as well as you'd think. That said, looking at Donald Trump visiting alligator Alcatraz in Florida, built in a few weeks. This is basically illegal migrants rounded up by ICE agents, and then before they're flown home, they put it. The outcry over this by the media, oh, it's awful, this woman rounded up. Yeah, she arrived in the country 3 years ago. She's not here legally, so she has to leave. I mean, I don't know what's complicated about that. She knew the deal. But I mean, we are never going to get rid of these people, are we?
No, you're not. And that's the stark answer. What are you doing to send them back? Where are you sending them back? What negotiations have you made with the countries of origin, if you can find out who they are? None. Absolutely none. And smashing the gangs, it makes me angry so many times when I hear Labour backbenchers say, we're smashing the gangs, we're taking this very seriously, counter-terrorism powers for all.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Well, that's worked well, hasn't it? Yeah. 20,000 crossings in 6 months. Yeah, but how's that gone? Not. And you just wonder at what point they have to admit that you need a deterrent.
And the deterrent is, I would say, alligator Alcatraz.
Where should we have that? In the Isle of Wight?
I mean, if they would have it, I'm thinking probably we probably go to somewhere, out of Hebrides, bit less bit less helpful in terms of weather-wise.
Fewer crocodiles.
That's what we need. You come here, you're not working as an Uber rider, Uber Eats rider, you're not earning any money, you're not wandering the streets and harassing teenage girls in this country. I'm afraid, you're not sitting in an asylum hotel. I'm afraid you're in some very unpleasant conditions, prison-like. Why? Oh, because you're here illegally. And if you don't like it, feel free to tell us where you're from, get on a plane and bye-bye. It's the only thing. Forget Rwanda now, I'm not even interested in any of that. ECHR, forget all of that. We need wholesale. You are never free on our streets. End of, full stop. I think we'll find it will stop. Genuinely, I would happily take on that role. And I happily take the grief for it. But I could have this solved in 2 months. I'm telling you, I could have this solved. Anyone would put their mind to it could have this solved in 2 months. But,
I'll be there. I'll be there with you.
But they don't have the will because the people in charge believe in open borders.
Yeah, they do.
Fundamentally, they believe in open borders. They believe that anyone who gets the urge to get or pay a people smuggler to come to this country should have the same rights as the people who are here and who live here and who are citizens here. That's because they have a fundamental lack of understanding of what the nation state is about and what being a citizen is about. But there we are. We will come on to that. We'll also come on to the extraordinary statistics that 4 in 10 babies born in this country are now born to at least one foreign-born parent. Is that something to worry about? Is that something to celebrate? Diversity? Is that something that we need to discuss? Abso-bloody-lutely. 10:21 is the time. We'll get to your calls up next. This is Talk.
They promised stability.
They said the grown-ups are back in charge.
I was so happy you just couldn't believe it.
Our work is urgent, and we begin it today.
I mean, you couldn't really scrape together a worse gang of misfits to run a dog kennel. Broken promises.
Billions blown.
Botched U-turns.
And Britain is burning.
One of the most immeasurably eventful.
1 year in power.
And Britain in freefall. It's just been a disaster.
1 year of chaos.
Friday, 4th of July.
9 p.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning. Welcome back to the show. 10:24 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. Lots and lots of calls coming in about that, humiliating U-turn and climb down by the Prime Minister yesterday over his flagship welfare reforms that don't reform welfare at all, aren't flagship, and even though it mentions personal independence payments in the name of the bill, doesn't actually do anything about tackling the huge explosion in the number of people claiming those disability benefits, many of them for mental health reasons. Absolute madness. Absolute exposure of just what an absolute empty vessel the Prime Minister is, and how this government is absolutely not going to get on top of the public finances that have been in a whole heap of mess for a very long time, but particularly since lockdown policy sent us completely over the edge. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. So 344 499 1000. By the way, we'll keep you up to date on what's happening at the COVID inquiry. Once again, your friend and mine, our hero in politics, the former Health Secretary Matt Hancock, and my former neighbour. Tell you what, is there anything worse than walking down the street and discovering Matt Hancock lives in your street? Seriously. Not anymore, I'm pretty sure. I haven't seen him for a while, but hiding out, I don't know. But he's at the COVID inquiry today giving evidence on what happened in care homes at the beginning of the COVID outbreak. So any significant statements there that do or do not tally with his WhatsApps that were revealed by our good colleague Isabel Oakeshott, and we'll bring that to you. Right now then, let's get to your calls. John is on the line and is in Bradford, and he's given us a call on 0344 499 1000. Wants to have his say. John, what did you make of that climb down last night?
Well, I'm going to make a prediction now. They've forced the government to backtrack on this. Yep. What's going to happen is this bill's going to go up and up and up, along with the cost of immigration. They're going to end up going to the International Monetary Fund, and when they come down, they'll come down very, very hard. And he thought what happened in Greece was bad. That'll be nothing compared to what this is going to do.
Well, our debts are now, I mean, as a proportion of ratio to our assets, things are higher now. I mean, we're in a terrible. We pay more to borrow money now than Italy does, which is a complete basket case economy.
Yeah, but you see, the Labour Party never understands one thing. If you take money out of people's pockets, they've got nothing to spend, and that means the economy goes into recession. But I'm going to say within the next 18 months, they'll be going cap in hand to the International Monetary Fund, and the first thing they'll do is they'll cut benefits. They'll make the government sell any government property. Yep. They'll make them privatise it. They'll make them balance the economy. They won't be in control of it anymore. The International Monetary Fund will be in control of it. And I remember that in the 1970s.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reality. It was fascinating. There was an amazing tweet, actually, from Kevin Schofield, is a long-time political commentator. And he was pointing out, he's spoken to a Labour backbench MP. He said, I don't know why people are talking about there being tax rises as a result of this benefits bill and this climb down. I mean, it's only £5 billion, not very much money. It's the equivalent of 1% of the basic rate of income tax. That is how much these people do not understand basic maths.
Exactly, and the other thing they don't understand is that when in the 1970s the pound crashed.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, again, they need a little bit of history, these people, do they not? But again, if the Prime Minister had more of a backbone, and if he, I know with Pat McFadden, his sort of, Commander-in-Chief, he's been out, doing the media rounds today and saying, oh, look, I worked with Tony Blair and we went through the same thing. Completely different. There was piles of money left for Blair and Labour to spend. There isn't now. And Tony Blair was massively popular within it after a year in office, whereas Keir Starmer was one of the most unpopular prime ministers ever after a year in office. So it's just not the same thing, is it?
No, well, if he'd have turned round last night and said, if you don't back these, I'll call a general election, most of these MPs would have voted for it because they'd be frightened of losing the seats.
Very interesting point. Yeah, he didn't have the authority to do that, or the guts, because I said he's an empty vessel. John, thank you for that call. Appreciate that. Let's get some of your texts and tweets before we go to another caller. Matt says, pride before the fall, arrogance over authority, going after disabled and pensioners for the elite puppet masters after a loveless landslide is a fatal error. Lost the country and its own backbench. dentures. We are far down the line from Blair 1997. The state of our society makes everything 10 times worse. He wasn't going after... He went after pensioners, yeah, but he didn't go after the disabled. The point of this is for reform for people who should not be claiming these benefits. Wayne says Labour needs to get him out. It's been the worst 12 months in UK political history. Barbara says all these U-turns are for the better, so please stop moaning. Well, yeah, but the point is that he doesn't get it in advance and he's forced into U-turns. He doesn't do it because he knows it's the right thing to do. Starmer's, well, apart from this welfare one, Starmer is a total imbecile, says Ben. Unfortunately, next in line for this crown of lies is 10 times worse. We have 4 years of hell in front of us. Well, yeah, I mean, let's face it, if you get rid of him, you're kind of looking at Angela Rayner, aren't you? Kay says if Labour were voted out now, what size would their black hole be after being in government for 1 year? And Donald says... Not Trump, I think. They fail at everything they attempt to do. Our country will be ruined if we don't get them out. Dave is in Southend. He's given us a call and wants to have his say. Good morning to you, Dave.
Good morning, Mrs. Hartley-Brewer.
It's very formal. Very formal.
If you just let me have a couple of minutes before you interrupt and let me put my point. My point is this, the PIP. Mm-hmm. Now, I work and my wife works. We both can claim this because of what we suffer from. I've now got cancer and I've got osteo and all the rest of it, but I still work and I retire in September and I'm still going to carry on working. My argument was when Mr. Graham had the last caller, this chap was saying he had whatever, and he's now got a brand new car and I believe you get the insurance as well paid for. You also, on these PIPs, have to put a deposit down on these vehicles, and you can go up to a BMW, etc. Now, he also said he works. Now, my argument is this. If you're working, then you can do the same as me and my wife, and you can pay for your own car. Yep. If he has travel problems, then I'm quite happy to help anyone who needs help, but this is getting excessive, to give him a bus pass and a Network Rail card for free. Yeah. Why should I have to pay for a brand new car for this guy, and there are hundreds or thousands in the country in the same boat. Was it a quarter of the cars on the road are brand new cars, PIP. I'm a person that wants to help people, don't get me wrong. Yep. We are wearing our hearts on our sleeves and we are going bust. Yep. But we have got to put a stop to this, being afraid to speak out like I have. I'm going to be ostracised on Twitter. I don't care. No. But I don't ask for a brand new car. I haven't got a brand new car. I can't afford one.
I've never had a brand new car.
I pay for my car and my travelling myself, but I could claim PIP, but morally I won't. I've worked, Mrs. Hartley-Brewer, since 15 and a half when I got an apprenticeship on London Transport. I've not claimed a penny from the government when I could have. Why should I pay for these cars?
Yeah. No, and that's the thing. And I'm like you. I want to pay for people who need it. But again, it's like someone suffers from anxiety. They unpick. Well, why the hell do you need to have a Motability car? I don't understand. I mean, if you're that anxious, I'd rather you weren't on the road. Thank you very much. But I completely agree with you. But the whole point is this has got completely out of control. And when people say this is an attack on, on disabled people, it's not the whole point. It was trying to stop people claiming stuff that they shouldn't be entitled to.
Yes, mate, you're quite right. I mean, we're not seeing the bigger picture here. A lot of the mental problems with the children, I still believe, was lockdown. Mm-hmm. And keeping them at home in front of computers did not do any of them any good. And I blame Johnson for that. And also, I blame the Conservatives with the welfare bill, because they started this rubbish.
Yeah, the explosion happened under them. Yep.
I also say, before we attack our people who are on our benefits, let's start attacking the illegal immigration that's costing us first. Cut their benefits, put them into detention centres, and then once we've dealt with that and we save billions, then we go after the people that are taking
I think you could do it all at the same time. I don't think this government can do anything at the same time as anything, but there we are. But really great call, Dave. Really appreciate that. And I'm a Ms, not a Mrs, by the way. Just throwing that out there. But you can just call me Julia. It's fine. Or I get called a lot worse on social media. 10:33 is time. Very quick word from Claire Pearsall.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting, the whole Motability car thing. They aren't free cars, and I do know a disabled gentleman that's got an adapted vehicle which is paid for by himself through his PIP payments, because otherwise he wouldn't be able to get around. And that's
no
absolutely
issue.
fine.
Again, I don't think anyone's
Do you know
got
what
an issue
I have
with
an issue with? Somebody who has an alcohol abuse problem being told you can have a car. I'd really rather they didn't.
Let's vote no. Yeah. 10:34 is the time. Up next, going to talk to Mark Littlewood from Popular Conservatism. We're also going to be talking about Lucy Letby. More criminal charges are being considered right now by the Crown Prosecution Service over the baby death at the hospital where Lucy Letby worked. This as 3 senior hospital bosses at the hospital were at the time that she was convicted for these murders and attempted murders of a total of 14 babies have now been arrested and charged arrested over criminal negligence. We'll be talking about that coming up in the next half hour as well. Do keep your calls coming in. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. 10:37 is the time. I'm Julia Hartley-Brewer. This is Talk, the home of common sense. Let's get some common sense from my next guest, Mark Littlewood. He's the Director of Popular Conservatism and joins us now. Good morning to you, Mark.
Good morning, Julia. Good to be with you.
Look, I mean, where to even start with this epic climb down from Keir Starmer? Some of the headlines are saying, Keir Starmer, managed to get through his welfare reform, stave off rebellion. No, he didn't. He completely capitulated on key elements of his welfare reform. There is no welfare reform in the welfare reform bill that's actually not called the welfare reform bill. Good thing, because it doesn't actually reform things. It was supposed to save best part of £5 billion for taxpayers. It'll actually end up costing taxpayers more. We've got another £5 billion black hole for Rachel Reeves to fill. What did you make of the whole farce last night?
Yeah, I think it's even worse than you've just suggested, Julia. I mean,
how?
Well, it's worth remembering, even if, let's imagine a parallel universe where Keir Starmer's bill had gone through unamended, no concessions. It doesn't actually cut the welfare bill. It just stops it going up as rapidly.
Yeah.
So even if it had passed in its entirety, I think you're only dealing with the very tip of the iceberg that you need to tackle in order to get public spending under control. Yeah. But as you rightly say, it has basically died a complete death.
Yeah.
So there are, I think, a couple of lessons here. One, is that we've got to have a much more serious debate about the state of our public finances. It now seems it's almost impossible to make any savings reduction anywhere, and that means that the country is on a trajectory of going bust at some point. You referenced Greece a little earlier in the show. The second is a political point that Keir Starmer has now completely lost control of the Labour troops in the House of Commons. And once you start making U-turns, it started with a sort of winter fuel allowance, but once you start making them, there is blood in the water. And any statement you come out with about anything you intend to do, everybody will immediately think, well, is he going to stick to this one? Or is there going to be yet another U-turn? So that's a disaster
politically, just talking about his political and moral authority, which he appears to have absolutely none now, I don't think he had any in the first place, but certainly none left now. Is there anything different that he could have done? Could he have said, no, this is a sodding vote of confidence, as some cabinet ministers suggested in private phone calls to Labour MPs, and, you know, I will, you know, the government will fall, and I will call a general election if you don't vote for this, because this was in our manifesto. We said we'd do it. We need to do it. Do you think he could or should have done that?
It potentially. What seems to have gone wrong here, though, from what I can gather of the Labour operation, was a failure of political intelligence. They didn't really have their finger on the pulse about how many rebels are there. What do they need to be brought off? Hold on a minute. I mean,
you're not going to be surprised in number 10 that a bunch of Labour MPs are going to be unhappy, who's low in the polls, low popularity for the Prime Minister, and who've faced all these problems over the winter fuel payments after the local elections and the Runcorn by-election. You're not going to, you don't have to be like a political genius. You don't have to be John Curtis, for goodness sake, to think, oh, maybe these Labour MPs might not like cutting welfare for disabled people.
Sure, Julia, you'd be aware of that. But as ex-President Lyndon Johnson was fond of saying, the first rule of politics is learning how to count. Yeah. It matters exactly how many of them are willing to defy a three-line whip.
Because it is just the usual
some
suspects.
Of them back on board. Yeah.
That's okay.
Is it really? Are there 60 of these rebels? Are there 70? Are there 80? Are there 100?
Yeah.
Are there 150 of these rebels? All of those sort of calculations, which need to be on a absolutely worked out to the last jot and comma, they failed to do. So they, I think, were surprised by the sheer numbers against them and the determination of the rebels.
Yeah, well, indeed.
And a well-run government should not be surprised by either. They should be able to identify
if they're paying attention. And even though, with a massive watering down of this bill, to the extent that it's actually the part of the name of, that's I find extraordinary part of the name of the bill. It's a Universal Credit and Personal Independence Payment Bill. That's the official name. It doesn't do anything about personal independence payments other than this review set up by Stephen Tibbs, which you don't need legislation. And even though they had a climb down on virtually everything, but they're going to be spending more money on helping people get people back into work. I mean, I'm encouraged by that, but I think you need the stick as well as the carrot. 49 Labour MPs voted against, 19 also abstained. That is a big rebellion by any stretch of the imagination. You mentioned earlier about the state of the public finances, and if you've got a party in power who simply do not accept, but the majority of those MPs, that there need to be massive cuts to huge swathes of the public spending commitments, and that has to include welfare, because you simply can't cut everything else on the same basis. You said we could go bust, and a caller earlier, John, was talking about we're going to end up going cap in hand to the IMF. Mm-hmm. Is that actually likely to happen?
If we continue on this trajectory, yes.
But isn't every other Western government doing the same? And America just voted for this big, beautiful bill, which massive increase in debt there.
Yeah, I mean, we're not unique in the Western world. I think America has more of a growth strategy. We were told our government here was going to be laser focused on growth. Well, yes. I haven't seen a great deal of that laser focusing on anything. So one way you can get out of trouble is even if on the face of it you're spending more and more, as long as you're growing pretty consistently, clipping along at 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5% per annum growth, suddenly you can pay those bills more easily. Well, our growth is particularly stagnant. And the inflection point would be this, really. I mean, if politicians don't get serious about making these decisions, the markets will. Yeah. And you referenced earlier the cost of borrowing money for the UK government is extraordinarily high. We are spending more on simply servicing our debt than we are spending on education. And if you keep going in this direction, the markets will demand a higher and higher rate of return for lending you a buck.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we're seeing now. for all of the talk that Liz Truss crashed the economy, the amount that markets are demanding now is considerably higher than it was even when she was Prime Minister. That keeps going up, and at some point reality bites, and you have to make some serious reductions.
I mean, we are looking, you know, the budget is going to have some big tax rises and or some big spending cuts, and a lot of people under the view, like, well, where are we going to get those spending cuts from? Can I get you onto something else there? Because I guess it's another big expenditure, actually, is dealing with illegal migration, channel boat migrants. We got some figures that suggest now, official figures, given that, you know, 900 on Monday alone, 20,000 small boat migrants have arrived this year, January to June, the first 6 months of the year. It looks set for a record for this whole year, despite the Prime Minister saying he was going to smash the gangs, and, you know, a nice chat with Macron and Ursula von der Leyen in Brussels, and it was all going to be solved. And the big problem was that Boris Johnson, Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak didn't have a good relationship with the EU and France, and if only you put Labour in, they can deal with it. How's that going?
Yeah, it's going terribly. I mean, how many gangs have been smashed? None at all.
I'm sure there's been one arrest or two.
Well, a couple of arrests. I'm not sure. I mean, of individual people, I'm not sure that any single whole gang has been taken out by the ferocity of Keir Starmer's anti-immigration policies. It truly is a shambles. And you've got to get several things right, of which I think this government and indeed the last government basically got none of them right. You need to have very firm enforcement. So Border Force needs to know what it's doing and be properly resourced in order to tackle this. And that includes working more closely with the French. I would make sure the French were paid by results, by the way, not a grant, but a particular bounty for each boat they've stopped or individual they
but hold on a minute. Every boat they stop, that's all very well. But you know, they can you know, seize some dinghies and put holes in them. They can do whatever they want. Yeah. But every time you stop a boat, then those people just go back onto the beaches, hide in the sand dunes, and then they come out again in 2 days' time to get on another boat.
Well, you can decide what results you want, Julia, and pay the French by achieving those, not necessarily by holding any boat, perhaps by arrests of these gangs, right? You decide what results you want the French to produce and pay them per result. Don't pay them in a block grant, which means they don't even have any incentive to stop anything, pretty much, other than goodwill. But the other thing we've got to get right is the legal system this end. I mean, it is ludicrous how long it takes to process these claims. It is ludicrous the ease with which you can stay in the United Kingdom and the generosity with which you're with which you are treated whilst you are awaiting that outcome. I want to see asylum applications sped up from something like 18 months on average to something nearer 18 hours. I'd accept 18 days, I think, but no more than 18 days. That would work.
What do you make of Donald Trump who visits in Florida to be built within a very, very, very short period of time? This alligator Alcatraz, as he's dubbed it. This is a detention camp next to an airport, basically. You know, if you're a legal migrant, you're rounded up by ICE, you're taken into custody, and you are put in this, effectively like a prison camp, in bunk beds. If people are watching, bunk beds within cages, and surrounded by alligators and God knows what in the neighbouring land and water, and then you are airplaned back to your home. Do we need to do a bit of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the alligator stuff is a bit too flamboyant for my taste, Julia. I mean, that's
I'm not saying we should import
Bond villain, isn't it? That's a sort of Bond villain type thing. But basically, again, yes. I mean, I think we need to build facilities that needn't be inhumane, but should be rudimentary to house these people, rather than putting them up in hotels at the cost of 200 quid or more per night. Absolutely ludicrous. It should be the barest rudimentary stuff. One bed, 3 square meals a day, but no frivolities. We need those sort of facilities. The fact that we don't get them means that asylum seeking has basically taken over a good chunk of our hotel sector. That's completely unacceptable and inappropriate. So I'd go with Trump nearly all the way, probably stop just short of the alligators.
Thank you very much, Mark Littlewood, Director of Public Conservatism. Claire Pearsall still here in the studio. What do you want to say?
I think Mark's right when you look at if we go back to Starmer and his set of problems, is he doesn't actually know the people he's dealing with. Yeah. And I overheard a couple of Labour MPs, I was walking behind them, having a discussion about how they had...
Stalking.
You say stalking. I say walking behind. They had never met Keir Starmer in the year that they've been in Parliament.
Oh, yeah.
And you just sort of think, I know
That's
there's a
not
lot
gonna
of you,
work.
but you can't continue.
Should have
with
done
this.
a load of glad handing.
Yeah.
That's what you do. Again, high and mighty, arrogant is just it's just an empty suit, as I said earlier. 10:49 is the time. Up next, and we're talking about the latest developments. Two massive developments in the last 24 hours involving the Lucy Letby case. We'll talk about that up next. This is Talk.
They promised stability.
They said the grown-ups are back in charge.
I was so happy you just couldn't believe.
Our work is urgent, and we begin it today.
I mean, you couldn't really scrape together a worse gang of misfits to run a dog kennel. Broken promises.
Billions blown.
Botched U-turns.
And Britain is burning.
One of the most immeasurably eventful.
1 year in power.
And Britain in freefall. It's just been a disaster.
1 year of chaos.
Friday, 4th of July.
9 p.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense, with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Do keep your calls coming in thick and fast about that extraordinary U-turn and caving in, an absolute humiliation for Keir Starmer last night over his welfare reform bill that doesn't reform welfare. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. First up, though, let's turn our attention to Lucy Letby. Most of the news about Lucy Letby in recent months has been about how she is innocent, or at the very least could possibly be the victim of a miscarriage of justice, and should have an appeal and her case heard after appeal to the Criminal Cases Review Commission. However, two massive new developments related to Lucy Letby have happened in the last 24 hours. Let's discuss those now with Danny Shaw. He's a police crime and justice commentator. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia. Nice to be with you again.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. Now, yesterday on air, we learnt that, extraordinarily, that three former bosses at the hospital where Lucy Letby worked in 2015-2016, at the time when she was found convicted of killing 7 babies and the attempted murder of 7 others. They've been arrested for gross negligence manslaughter charges. But there's a new development since then. Prosecutors say they are looking at charging Lucy Letby with more baby murders, and they have also sent a file to the Crown Prosecution Service. Talk us through what's going on.
So lots of developments in this case. Let's begin. Be absolutely clear about this. Lucy Letby is in prison, serving life sentence for the murders of 7 babies and the attempted murders of 7 others. Those convictions stand. She had an appeal. She was unsuccessful. She protests her innocence, and her case is with the Criminal Cases Review Commission, the body which investigates potential miscarriages of justice, and it has the power to refer her case back to the Court of Appeal. If that happens, it won't happen for some months.
Yeah.
So that's the position as far as Lucy Letby is concerned. It has also been the case that Cheshire Police have, for a couple of years been looking at whether she committed further offences, either at the Countess of Chester Hospital or at Liverpool Women's Hospital, where she worked. The period that they're looking at is between 2012 to 2016. So they're looking at deaths of other babies and collapses, non-fatal collapses of other babies, to see whether it's linked to Letby and whether she could potentially have been responsible. So that is ongoing. And then the other strand, Julia, which you've highlighted, is this arrest on Monday of 3 senior leadership officials at the Countess of Chester Hospital. They were working there at the period that Lucy Letby was there, and they have been arrested on suspicion of gross negligence manslaughter. In other words, it's alleged that they committed actions which were grossly negligent, or they didn't do anything when they should have done, which amounts to gross negligence manslaughter. Now, they have been arrested. They have not been charged. They've been released on police bail pending further investigations, and they haven't been named at this stage.
No, indeed. Although, as I was saying on the show yesterday, if you follow the case closely and the criticisms, you might be able to guess perhaps who at least a couple of those 3 may likely be. What was interesting is the announcement from the police yesterday about those arrests of the hospital bosses made it very clear that this had no bearing on the guilt of Lucy Letby, because you knew immediately this would be leapt on by many of those campaigning for her to get a retrial or to be freed by claiming that she's the victim of a miscarriage of justice on the basis that, oh, well, look, there were failings by bosses, failings at the hospital. We know that this already was, a failing neonatal unit at the Countess of Chester Hospital, and therefore that was why babies died and not at the hand of a serial killer nurse, which is what the juries have ruled. But that's not the case. This is in relation to, if these charges are brought, but these arrests certainly already have happened, this is in relation to, the idea that no action was taken when there were concerns raised. And this all came up in the trial and in subsequent reporting. When it comes to possible more charges for Lucy Letby, as you mentioned, like, this is at 2 different hospitals. This has been something that's been ongoing because since the beginning of this inquiry, because a huge number of babies' deaths and collapses have been investigated by the police in different hospitals, haven't they?
Yes, and this is a very, very complex piece of work because the medical evidence in some of these cases is not always clear, and then you have conflicting expert evidence, as we have seen in regard to the deaths for which she has been convicted. We've had a whole panel of experts who have come out instructed by her defence, saying these weren't murders, these were deaths by natural causes, and the prosecution experts have got it completely wrong. So I think the difficulty for the police and prosecutors is, if they want to charge Lucy Letby with more murders or attempted murders, will be to ensure that the medical evidence is absolutely spot on. They will be aware that will probably be contested.
Yeah.
So
I mean, they should do that anyway, shouldn't they? Do you think if there were further charges brought and there were a trial, and again, people are innocent until proven guilty of any particular crime, even if they've been convicted of a previous crime, that if she were convicted of more murders or attempted murders, that might put to rest the claims that she is a victim of a miscarriage of justice?
There's a few steps down the road.
Yeah, obviously, there's a lot of ifs there.
I think, yes, of course. I mean, I think if there was a fresh trial on new charges and she was convicted, that would be a massive setback for her. And I think, the public opinion might move in a different direction. But we're some way from that. And it's very difficult to know how all these things will play out, because there's one other element, which has been the public inquiry, the Thirlwell inquiry. which has been looking into conditions at the hospital and so on. Now, it's very interesting to note, and I think it's important, worth saying, that during that inquiry, and we can report this because it was said during the inquiry, it heard that claims that executives at the Countess of Chester Hospital displayed a form of individual and corporate self-protection that should have no place in the NHS. That was a claim made by one.
No place in the NHS, and yet it's happened every single time. We've had cases where there have been concerns about unnecessary deaths or injuries, whether it's babies or adult patients. Danny Shaw, great to have you on the show explaining that. Thank you so much. Peace, crime and justice commentator Danny Shaw. I'll get Claire Pearsall's thoughts on that coming up. We're going to be talking more about welfare reform. There isn't reform of welfare. Channel boat migrants, 20,000 record, and 4 in 10 babies now born to at least one foreign parent. This is Talk.
We've been talking this morning about a new theme park which is going to be built. The Universal Studios apparently are going to build it in Bedfordshire. We've been asking many of you to give us some ideas for theme parks. Alison in South Wales says in the new theme park at 5 p.m. every day they could have the PIP parade. All the people driving their brand new Motability cars.
Instead of the water rapids, you can have a road you go down that's full of potholes in a car with bad suspension and flat tyres. I don't know why they're bothering building a theme park in this country. They're going right, no one will be able to afford to go to it anyway.
How about the Rachel Reeves ride, says Terry in Birmingham. You go round and round and vanish up your own deficit. It's the HS2 ride. It travels at high speed for 10 feet, where everyone gets off and into the replacement bus ride. Tickets are £50 if bought 5 months in advance, or £1,000 on the day.
There's a strong rumour going round that Rachel Reeves is going to have a kissing booth for this theme park. So what I do, mate, I shove a 5 in a pot and you can go and fill your boots.
Thank you very much indeed, and very generous of you. One from G, who says fast-track entry to every ride for illegals, plus a free night stay in the Parks Hotel and free food. New theme park bumper cars will have to pay a congestion charge, and the funhouse isn't built yet, despite Angela Rayner's pledge to build houses. What about Ghost Train doesn't move because the driver's on strike? Have a good day. This is brilliant for the theme park. How about grow your own cannabis farm? Yeah, that's a good one. An Ethiopian safari park narrated by Angela Rayner. Says Gary in Durham. How about that? This sums up the Labour Party to me. The one idea they have to improve growth for the economy is to basically have a bloody big fun fair. It's the type of idea primary school children would pitch, given 10 minutes to come up with something. Well, it turns out, Matt, in Royston, that it's not even their idea. But they're now trying to claim it's their idea, even though it was actually the Tories.
They have done brilliantly on breakfast, but you know on Drive you've done brilliantly as well. Downhill slide rides surrounded by ULEZ cameras so that people are fined on exit. Love it. You could have a Birmingham-themed whack the rat stall. If you whack the rat, you can have your bin emptied for free. On the Labour theme park, a house of mirrors where they're all boarded up because they can't bear to look themselves in the eye.
I've got a great one for you, mate.
This is for the is this for the Universal theme park run by Labour?
Moat right around the park.
Yeah.
With loads of dinghies. Call it the channel and say anyone who can break in, all is free.
Imagine the Scouts to say you can break into a theme park for free.
Hi, Jeremy. Hey, it's simple. You've got the Labour ghost train.
Yeah.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning, welcome back to the show. This is Talk, the home of common sense. It's 3 minutes past 11 o'clock. Thank you so much indeed for your company. And whether you're listening on DAB+ radio or on your smart speaker, watching on YouTube, your connected device, it's great to have your company. Don't forget, if you do miss anything, if you've missed anything in the first hour of the show, do take a look at her YouTube page called The Julia Hartley-Brewer Show. I know, it's genius, isn't it? Honestly, the consultants that we paid to come up with that were the same ones who came up with the gov.uk, moving the dot up and making it turquoise or teal or whatever the hell it is, reform coloured, I don't know. We paid the same people. 500,000. I think it was a price worth paying. The Julia Hartley-Brewer show on YouTube. So hit subscribe, you'll never miss a thing. By the way, the joy that I have every time I say that is watching my producer Ted's face as he rolls his eyes. It's just, I do it just to annoy him. Sorry if it annoys you as well, but you know, I've got to have my fun. Not much fun to be had when it comes to trying to work out how the hell this country is going to get out of the mess it's in under this Labour government, under this Prime Minister today, though, after the extraordinary climb down by Keir Starmer last night. We told you he won his vote last night on welfare reform, except he didn't win a vote on welfare reform. He won a vote on spending more on welfare. There is going to be no cut to the welfare bill under his plans. And he had a humiliating U-turn on that crackdown on personal independence payments, PIP. It was dropped. That plan to actually have any control over that at all, even for future claimants, let alone current claimants. They'd already dropped that. It was dropped just 90 minutes before that crunch vote in a last-ditch bid to stave off rebellion. 49 Labour rebel MPs still voted against the watered-down bill. Another 19 abstained. What are they going to vote on or vote against next? That's the interesting thing. Is the Prime Minister now completely out of all authority? Is he going to survive, given that his backbenchers know they can force any policy U-turn they want? Also wondering about his job today is the BBC Director General Tim Davie. He's fighting to keep his job after the Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy demanded answers over the corporation's decision to continue broadcasting the rap duo Bob Dylan's Glastonbury performance after the lead singer started chanting "death, death" to the IDF. Since we now know, of course, that Tim Davie was there at the time at Glastonbury. Plus, going to talk more about that record 20,000 small boat migrants who have crossed the Channel and entered Britain in the first half of this year. It's a record high. Nearly 900 arrived in Dover from France on Monday alone. Do we need a bit of a Florida-style alligator Alcatraz as Trump opened yesterday? I think we do. Right now, let's introduce Claire Pearsall. She's a former Conservative government advisor and joins us once again. Thank you very much indeed for being here. I do want to ask you about Lucy Letby, because the conspiracy theories around her case are quite extraordinary, I think. But first of all, we've got to come back to the welfare issue. Keir Starmer, victory last night, but not a victory. It was a humiliating defeat. He's basically shown that less than a year into office, Friday is the anniversary of his election victory, with 411 MPs, a working majority of 166, a simple majority 156, all very complicated. He can get any legislation through he wants. Except he can't, because Labour backbenchers won't let him. They are now in charge in number 10, not Keir Starmer. He's only able to do anything on welfare if he promises not to cut it for anyone. That's basically what he did. Our finances are going to be in a mess. There's a £5 billion hole in the finances. That £5 billion was supposed to save, already spent by Rachel Reeves. Your and my taxes are going to go up. Other spending commitments are going to have to be cut. This is a disaster, not just for Keir Starmer's authority. It's a disaster for the government, but it's also a disaster for the nation's finances, isn't it?
It is, and that should be first and foremost in the Prime Minister's mind. He is now loading this onto the taxpaying public. It's got to be paid for somewhere. Where's that coming from? You know, and I know that you like your magic money tree in the corner.
We pay for everything that way. We did that with quantitative easing. We did that with lockdown and furlough. We're doing that with bailing people out their energy bills. That welfare, we're going to allow everyone to be on welfare. That is how we run our country now. We just go into the garden, we go shake, 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 and you get some more money. Everyone knows that.
We're a country that's going to be in special measures before too long.
Special needs.
Absolute basket case of an economy. We cannot get anything done. We can't build anything because of all different planning. You've got an energy secretary that wants to put solar panels on lakes because electricity and water really mix well. And then you've got this whole debacle of yesterday. I haven't seen anything like it for a while, and I must admit I do love it when things go wrong for politicians, because it makes it much more interesting to see how they deal with it. And I think they deal with it very, very badly.
No, but isn't Keir Starmer going to say, well, I've listened, I've learned? You said earlier, you were in the Commons in the chamber watching the debate. I've said I couldn't bear to watch it because I knew there's only so much shouting at the television I can do on any given day. I've got to have that can't be my only hobby. You know, there's laundry to be done, there's stuff to be done. You know, but there's this climb down. I mean, it's there's no way in the world that you're watching the debate, and then you're watching the MPs on the Commons terrace, the Strangers Bar, where everyone goes, and a load of the cabinet ministers out and about. Not Angela Rayner, interestingly, not Keir Starmer, but these backbenchers now know they are no-mark backbenchers who have more power now than the Prime Minister when it comes to policy. That can't end well. And the idea that these comparisons, Pat McFadden, who's the Minister for Enforcement, effectively, he's been Minister for the Today programme, out and about doing media again, won't do our channel. I asked him once, I said, "Why, Pat? Pat, why don't you come? Why don't you come and come on my show?" And he goes, "Because I don't want to." Which I thought was a very good response. I'd much rather that than
honest.
And I said, "Well, you fret." And he went, "I just don't want to." And I thought, "No, because I'm not going to give you an easy ride."
Yeah, exactly.
But he's been out and about, and he's going, "Oh, I worked in the Blair government. We had similar problems. We had a welfare defeat as well." It's not the same thing.
No, it really isn't the same thing, because the economy arguably was in a much better position.
Arguably, I mean,
it was. We were so much better off. But you also had an incoming government that had a set of political philosophies, whereas currently we don't. You've got Sir Keir Starmer, chief flip-flopper. You've got Angela Rayner, who looks like she's shoring up the left-hand side of the vote to take over at any point. I don't think she will, however, because I think that all of the power now transfers to those backbenchers who have got the loudest voices.
Well, exactly, and the hand-wringing. I didn't come to be a Labour MP into Parliament so that I could cut welfare bills. No, but maybe you should worry also about the people who are paying taxes to pay for welfare bills. But also, again, it's this idea that it isn't moral to cut these bills. It is immoral for people who don't need these or think they need them but don't really need these payments to continue to get them. It is immoral to write people off on the scrap heap of life and ask other people to go to work every day and really struggle to pay for their taxes, to pay their bills for the other people who aren't doing it, who could work. That's immoral. The moral case against mass explosion of welfare is extremely strong, but the Prime Minister didn't make it. And I was saying earlier, this is a Prime Minister with no policies, no strategy, no ideas, no ideology, no philosophy, no moral mission, no backbone, no political insight, no management skills. He's not even, you mentioned he's a middle manager, he's not even a good manager. He couldn't even manage running a Tesco Metro, spillage in aisle 9. Oh, what do I do? What do I do? Let me get a focus group on it. We'll have a review. I will not clear up that spillage in aisle 9. Oh, and then we'll all say, all the staff say, we think you should fill up. You should sort out that spillage in aisle 9, Mr. Starmer. And then eventually has a U-turn and he goes and clears it up. We're in that level of incompetent management. We've all worked for those people, have we not? But he's an empty suit. And he didn't buy his own suit. Lord Ali bought his own suit. There's nothing there. I said earlier, and I stand by it, if you poured water on Keir Starmer, he would just disintegrate into nothing. He would just dissolve. There is nothing there. There is no substance to him. There is nothing there, and that's the problem. Now, someone who does, and she's often laughed at, but she does have a little bit of substance in terms of her political philosophy. I disagree with it, but I think she has got much more substance, and that's Angela Rayner. She's much mocked. And I do wish the woman would just, could Lord Ali buy her some clothes? She could wear something decent and not look like a clown half the time. Well, he should have bought different ones then for her. But she's done an interview. She's Deputy Prime Minister. She's Deputy Leader. She's got a mandate quite separate from Keir Starmer's. She's definitely on manoeuvres. You can definitely tell that. And you can tell someone's on manoeuvres because she's done an interview today on ITV's Lorraine. Not all people think these are easy interviews. They're not easy interviews, actually. But she said there's not a chance she wants to be Prime Minister.
Yeah.
She said, people always say to me, do you want to be Prime Minister? Not a chance. It will age me by 10 years within 6 months. It does anyone who's been Prime Minister. It's a challenging job. To be fair to Keir Starmer, there's been a lot going on. He's been all around the world trying to repair relationships. Wes Streeting, all the others, they're all out and about and they're all saying, oh, Keir Starmer's got a very tough job. They all want his job. She's on manoeuvres. Yeah. If we didn't have Keir Starmer, it is highly likely the Labour Party would elect Angela Rayner.
It's quite interesting because all of the Secretaries of State and senior ministers that were around last night were going out of their way to speak to all of these backbenchers. And you think, if you're Angela Rayner, why aren't you out there too? If you want to cement yourself as the go-between between number 10 and the backbenchers, you've solved this problem, you're riding high, you should be out there. And she wasn't.
Maybe she was preparing for Lorraine.
You have
to prep for these interviews, don't you? Let me touch back on Lucy Letby, because we'll talk about something different. Because I'd go, by the way, before we get on to that, I want to hear your thoughts on all the topics we're talking about. What is your reaction to the rebellion last night, to the victory stroke, clutching defeat from the jaws of victory? Keir Starmer last night. Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. You can get in touch with us on X at talkTV. Calls cost are charged at the national rate. Text cost £1, standard network rate. Message, of course. But we talked a few moments ago to Danny Shaw, Home Affairs correspondent, on Lucy Letby. These two incredible developments. So much focus. I mean, the Mail campaigns. There's lots of people are campaigning, including MPs, like David Davis and others, campaigning massively on this issue of whether or not Lucy Letby is the victim of a miscarriage of justice. We learned yesterday that 3 senior hospital bosses at the Countess of Chester Hospital at the time of 2015-2016, when babies were... Well, Lucy Letby is convicted of murdering and attempting to murder a total of 14 babies. Other charges also brought against her, which were not agreed by the jury or she was found not guilty of. But now we're looking at other charges happening, but also these 3 hospital bosses have been arrested and bailed, not named, for gross criminal negligence. Now, these are incredible developments. At the same time that we now know Lucy Letby could well face more charges for more babies' deaths and injuries, not just at County Chester Hospital, but also Liverpool Women's Hospital as well. Do you think that if there were more charges brought, and again, it's a lot of ifs, if against Lucy Letby, if she were found guilty of any of those crimes, that would finally put to bed some of these conspiracy theories that she is basically being hung out to dry and she's a victim of terrible miscarriage of justice? This young, very attractive blonde nurse who did nothing wrong in a failing neonatal unit, who's been blamed by everybody. Do you think that will stop?
No, I don't. I think that the people who believe there has been some horrendous miscarriage of justice will always think that.
Yeah.
And I think she's been through the judicial process. She has been found guilty in court. Now, there is some question over some of the evidence. I do understand that. But I'm not convinced that there is enough to overturn this.
I don't mind there being a review. And
no,
there
absolutely.
have been enough miscarriage of justice. And if that just settles things, I think it's very important that people have faith in the justice system. Yeah. And, a lot of us don't have much faith in the justice system, certainly not judges, more faith in juries. But given in those cases that came to court, the juries were out. There was a second case involving another baby, but the case that involved lots of babies, there were, extraordinary amounts of time spent by the jury on each individual case. Some were found not proven, some not guilty, some undecided. There was not a we'll be in 10 minutes, she's definitely guilty, 100%, we're believing everything. They weighed up. I have absolute trust that that did due diligence on that. Talking of trials though, P. Diddy, Sean Combs, his trial, really annoying. It's very likely we may well get a result in that trial, a verdict in that trial from the jury. They've agreed on, I think, 4 of the 5 charges, but not the most significant charge, the racketeering RICO charge. That's involving these just horrific, so-called freak-offs, these, organised sex parties where his girlfriends basically had sex with complete strangers and male prostitutes for hours and hours and days on end, and needed drips and medical treatment afterwards. I would say your face is the same as mine. Middle-aged women going, ew, no. The fact that we don't know whether they've been found guilty or innocent of those charges, and the judge has said he wants unanimous decisions on all 5 charges before there is that's released. But it is absolutely fascinating. If your defence is, I was a domestic abuser, I was violent and abusive, but I didn't racketeer, I didn't have an organisation that crossed state lines and things. If that's your defence, you're not on the most solid ground, are you?
You're not. He's trying to get off on a technicality, because the evidence in this trial has been horrendous. I think at the beginning...
And he didn't give any defence himself, but the defence was tiny, and he didn't give evidence, which is always...
It tells you a lot.
Well, I'm sorry, if I was a juror, I would read something into that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hadn't appreciated quite how horrendous this was. You start reading it, and see, your face did exactly the same. It is
Sorry
awful.
if you're eating your breakfast late, I don't know.
And he maintains his innocence throughout all of this. But it's quite interesting that the judge is demanding that it has to be 5 unanimous decisions. So I'm not sure when we're going to get some kind of result. I saw this late last night, so the jury have retired and they will come back today. So I think that we need to keep an eye on this. It is quite important because he has been able, if he is found guilty, to get away with this for a considerable period.
Well, it's very interesting that given that everyone apparently knew about these freak-offs, as they were called. That everyone seemed to know about it. An awful lot of people took part in them, but he wasn't caught up in the Me Too movement. It did seem to me that there were just certain men who had a get out of jail free card, as it were, until now. For and I wonder why, because only certain men came under attack. Anyway, let's come back to what's been going on here. 20,000 small boat migrants have arrived so far this year from France. Again, I'm going to say the ones we know about. These are the ones who are intercepted. I'm sure there's. That said, if you do get here, why wouldn't you just say, "Hello, I'm an asylum seeker. Get in the system. Get your free hotel or your flat." Still going up. It's a record number. Abject failure to protect our borders. The gangs have not been smashed. Boats have not been stopped. Is the answer, though, what Keir Starmer's trying to do, and a bit of a negotiation with Emmanuel Macron and Ursula von der Leyen in Brussels, or what Donald Trump is doing with Alligator Alcatraz in Florida? He visited this big new prison built in a matter of days, I believe, actually, next to an airport runway. If you if you're a legal migrant and you can't prove you've got a right to be in the States, you're basically manhandled in the street by ICE agents. You're taken into custody. You're put here. You're in a bunk bed inside a cage. There is air conditioning. It's very hot there, but there is air conditioning, I'm told. And then you're going to be put on a plane back to your home country. I don't understand why people think. I mean, you need an appeals process if someone is not the person they say they are, and but I don't really understand if someone has entered the country illegally. I don't know why people have an issue with this. And people say, well, they've got children. Well, should have thought of that. I mean, is that incredibly cruel, or is that what we need to be doing here?
No, do you know what? Almost the best part of Alligator Alcatraz is that there is merchandise. There are baseball caps and T-shirts and sweatshirts. I mean, Donald Trump doesn't miss an opportunity, does he, for a bit of merch coming out there? But I think that why would you not want a deterrent? And if you are going to round up people that shouldn't be in your country, they have to go somewhere. So why not have a facility?
Do you think you're going to be able to find them again once they know they're looking for? But talking about, people say it's an immigration crackdown. No, it's an illegal immigration crackdown. You don't have a right to just live in any country you darn well feel. If I went to America and I was not legally allowed to be there, I would expect to be deported. I don't know why this is controversial to people. They're talking about splitting up families, but we have the same issue with illegal migrants here, like committing a crime. And we've had this tribunal say, well, they've got children here. Take the children with you if you care so strongly about it. Oh, they've got a right to be here. Fine, then leave them here. It's up to you. We're not bothered which you do, but you made those decisions yourself. I'm sorry, I don't understand. I know it's cruel, but it's also cruel to have someone, I mean, we're talking about 10 million in America, people working in... They're not paying tax. They're working in the black market. And everyone goes, oh, well, the California economy won't survive. Our economy won't survive. They're paying people, below wage. The reason why wages are so low in America, and the average American in 20 years has not seen a real terms increase in their standard of living, is because of illegal migrant workers who undercut. And they're willing to work for worse conditions and worse pay, and the employers love it, and it's all off the books. And I'm sorry, there's going to have to be a bit of pain. But when you enter a country illegally or you overstay illegally, you know the deal. You know the deal. Tough.
Exactly. And those that commit crimes and then look to be deported and manage to get some kind of magical stop because they have a family, well, I don't care at this point. If you're a criminal, you have abused the trust, off you go.
Absolutely.
And if you don't have a deterrent, well, what's the point?
Well, let's build Alligator Alcatraz here. I mean, I don't know what we call it here. I don't know. Round my way, it'd be Fox Alcatraz. The foxes will get you.
Foxes and pheasants.
I do need to go to a break, but I do also just want to quickly talk about this latest stats showing that 4 in 10 babies in the UK is now born to at least one foreign-born parent. The majority of those foreign-born parents are non-European. In order, it's Indian, Pakistani, Nigerian, also Romanian, Bangladeshi, and then Polish. Those are the top group. Now, we need more babies being born in this country, but if 4 in 10 babies are being born to non-British-born parents. I think 1 in 3 babies now is born to a foreign-born mother. That is something that we should at least discuss. Now, people can say it's a good thing, it's a bad thing, but it is something we should discuss, and it is the direct result of the mass migration that we have seen in recent years, started under Tony Blair but carried on particularly under Boris Johnson, off the scale. This is something that the public might have expected, someone might have asked us about before they chose to do.
I think we need to look into it a little bit further. It's a very interesting headline, but I think that you need to be careful when you start looking at foreign-born. I'm foreign-born.
So, born in Cyprus?
Cyprus, yeah. My father was also born in Singapore.
Boris Johnson, a former Prime Minister, born in America.
So I think you need to look at that. But when you look at the top nationalities, Indian, well, OK. But are they here? Are they contributing to the economy? Are they net benefit? You know, are they a net drain on us, or are
is
they?
Is it about money, or is it about a cultural issue? And again, I don't think it's about skin colour. I think it's about a cultural issue. People being born to families who are new to this country and perhaps are not embedded in the culture and the values of this country.
I think it's both.
But it's a conversation we should have. We will have it a little bit later. 11:24 is the time. Your calls on that very welcome. Calls on welfare already coming in thick and fast. We'll get to those up next. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk.
They promised stability.
They said the grown-ups are back in charge.
I was so happy you just couldn't believe.
Our work is urgent, and we begin it today.
I mean, you couldn't really scrape together a worse gang of misfits to run a dog kennel. Broken promises.
Billions blown.
Botched U-turns.
And Britain is burning.
One of the most immeasurably eventful.
1 year in power.
And Britain in freefall. It's just been a disaster.
1 year of chaos.
Friday, 4th of July.
9 p.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Morning, welcome back to the show. This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. Do stay tuned, not only for the brilliant calls coming up, but also we're going to be talking about where we are. The BBC Director General, Tim Davie, fighting for his job after that outrage at Glastonbury with the Bob Villan chants of death to the IVF. Oh, and Diane Abbott saying the quiet bit out loud, referring to the Jewish Defence Force. Going to talk about all that with pro-Palestinian activist Steve Hedley. It's going to get lively. It always does with Steve. That's coming up. Plus, former head of UK Border Force, Tony Smith, on those extraordinary latest migrant figures. 20,000 small boat migrants arriving already so far this year. Right now, let's get to your calls coming in thick and fast about those welfare reforms that weren't welfare reforms. Humiliating defeat for the Prime Minister in his attempt at having a victory on his welfare bill. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Jackie's done just that. She's in West Sussex. Good morning to you, Jackie.
Oh, good morning. I just wanted to, I've got a strong interest in this. I've got a severely disabled daughter. She was born in 1977. There was no help at all.
Yep.
The attendance allowance came in 1980, and it was so modest that you would use it for perhaps a new washing machine, a tumble dryer, help in the house.
Yeah.
I would have been quite happy with a little basic car. I don't understand why we are buying vast expensive cars for people.
I think people could top up and buy a nicer car than their PIP allowance would allow for.
I was only too pleased that the government recognised that there are expenses that were with my daughter.
Yeah.
Then we had PIP, and I like Ian Duncan Smith. I think it's a shame he was never Prime Minister. But by this time, when the PIP assessment came in, my daughter is an adult, and we're fortunate enough that she lives in a home for disabled people. She was sent for by the job centre and had a harrowing interview for an hour, and she couldn't answer one single question, bless her. She didn't know what an O or A level was, and they asked her whether she'd ever been to college. And I just don't understand why we make such a pig's ear of this when it ought to be quite simple. Why keep reassessing my daughter? I would give my right arm for her to be normal and to have grandchildren and for her to be married.
But her condition's not going to change, so why are they wasting everyone's time and money?
Why waste all that
and the
money?
trauma for her?
And it happened under Tony Blair when he decided everybody would be lumped into, you'd be classed as disabled for the most minor things, and quite frankly I thought that was an insult to my daughter and all the other parents like me.
And the people who everybody, I think, should be proud to pay taxes in a civilised society to help.
Yes, exactly. And I just think, I cannot believe what people are claiming for. I could have access to my daughter's bank account. I don't, because obviously she has her own bank account where she lives. But at any time I could access that money. I would never dream of it. I would never dream of touching a penny of hers.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I do think that when people say we want to protect disabled people, the whole point is we want reforms that do protect people who genuinely have disabilities, where they need extra help to have a decent quality of life, and we should all help contribute to that. And when we're paying for anyone and everybody who says they feel a bit miserable on a Wednesday morning, we can't provide that help. Jackie, thank you so much for your call. Send you our very best wishes to you and your family. Right, strap on, everybody. Georgina in London is on the line. Good morning to you, Georgina.
Good morning, my darling. Good morning.
Can I just say, Claire Pearsall just did a little clap.
Good morning.
Come on, go for it.
Well, to say disgusted would be an understatement, and I do sympathise with the likes of Jackie, who's just called people who have got genuine disabilities. And my best friend, I love her dearly, has got cerebral palsy. She's got a genuine disability. The girl can't walk. So people like that who've got genuine disabilities, all power to them, and we will help them as much as we can. On the other hand, on the flip side, Julia, people who've got, they say they've got serious anxiety. Well, get a grip of yourselves, sort yourself out, and get a job like we all have to do. Sitting at home on your bottom in your house is not going to help your mental health. Get out, meet people, fresh air does you the world of good. As for the welfare reform, it's an absolute farce. I was spitting bullets at the television. I wish I had Keir Starmer, Tony Blair, Jeremy Corbyn and Boris Johnson in front of me. By God, they'd have a verbal lashing they would never get over.
I would pay to watch that. I really would. Georgina, time is against us, but I mean, as always, an absolute joy. Honestly, Georgina speaks for the nation. She really, really does. Thank you so much. I just always love your calls. 11:33 is the time. Up next, someone I think doesn't speak for the nation, Steve Hedley, pro-Palestinian activist and trade unionist, on where we are with that crisis at the BBC and at Glastonbury over those horrific death chants from an actor, Bob Villan. We'll talk about that up next. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. So don't forget, by the way, Friday night at 9 o'clock this week, 1 year of chaos airs. My goodness me, we've had a week of chaos, haven't we? This Friday marks 1 year since Labour's landslide election victory. And to commemorate that occasion, Talk has put together a 1 hour special. Features MG, Ian, everyone, me included, looking back at Keir Starmer's first 12 months in Downing Street. I think that's 12 months we're all going to want to forget. We'll just memory hole it and pretend it never happened. Certainly that's what he would wish he would do, wouldn't he? Anyway, do watch that and listen to that 9 o'clock on Friday night, and I'm sure it'll be on our YouTube page as well. Right now, let's talk right now about, well, where we are with the BBC, the Director General, Tim Davie, fighting for his job after the crisis over Glastonbury, deciding to air the live stream Bob Villan, a duo, punk rap duo hailing from the mean streets of Ipswich, where they decided to chant repeatedly, death, death to the IVF. They kept it online for about 5 hours, aired it live, even though there would already have been concerns about what the singer was going to say. Let's talk about all of that now with Steve Hedley. He's a pro-Palestinian activist and trade unionist. A good morning to you once again, Steve. How are you?
Good morning, Julia. I'm well. How are you?
Very well indeed. I'm hoping we can keep the civility up. It doesn't often end up that way, but let's do our very best, Steve. Do you think that the Bob Villan, the act that was preceding NECAP, there was already lots of concern about what NECAP would say ahead of Glastonbury at the weekend. Do you think NECAP should have been live streamed on the BBC in the first place? Should they have had their feed taken down the moment they started chanting death, death to the IVF? And do you think any heads should roll at BBC for filming it?
No, I think this is a complete distraction. I mean, while this was going on, we've had hundreds of people killed in Gaza. That should have been the story, not people that are exposing the massacres that are going on in Gaza. Can you imagine, Julia, you're a mother, right? Having the choice as a mother of either feeding her children, which means that you risk yourself to being shot in what can only be described as some sort of dystopian situation where you go along to a food point, and over 600 people now have been killed, 4,000 people have been injured.
No. Hamas claims that.
Your choice is you either let your children starve or you risk death by the IDF and their proxies, the mercenaries who are manning these stations. Now, that's the story.
You think that what happened in Glasgow was a distraction?
It's not the story.
Okay, here's the thing. You say, Bobby Villan, the lead singer of this duo, that he was exposing what's happening. I mean, it's on the front page of the BBC, the Sky website, the ITV. It's on television every single day. It's in the newspapers every single day. Who wasn't aware of the claims, and there are any claims about what is happening in Gaza?
Well, they're not claims. We've had Amnesty International. We've had the United Nations.
They weren't there.
They can't.
They can't verify something if they weren't there.
Are on the ground. They are on the ground. The United Nations.
A lot of those charities have withdrawn.
I mean, this is the problem. You and the Israeli lobby represent about 5% of society, which actually believes the IDF propaganda.
I don't believe any propaganda, but I don't believe Hamas propaganda either.
It's so ridiculous now, the things that they're coming out with, that no one believes them anymore. You're one of the last few people that hold that line.
Okay, I'm probably not. I think just in your world. Let me ask you a simple question, Steve. Steve, I don't believe anything any government tells me anymore unless there's evidence. I don't trust. I've lived in this country long enough. I don't believe. But I
are not a government. Oxfam are not a government.
No,
we have respected humanitarian organisations.
Well, they're respected by you. They're respected by you. A lot of people got some question marks over some of the things they've been saying and doing in recent months in Gaza. Let's talk about. People can only verify that something's happened if they were witnesses to it themselves. Here's my question.
Why won't the Israelis let in journalists to Gaza to verify
They've made it very clear because of the threat from Hamas and the threats to those journalists. Okay, let me ask you the question I want to ask you.
200 of your colleagues, journalists, have been killed in Gaza. That should be...
Oh, no, they're not. No, darling, they're not my colleagues. An awful lot of them work for Hamas. Steve.
And you never say... You never condemn it whatsoever. But you want to make a big issue about a...
I condemn any killing of a civilian. If people are civilian, Steve, here's the thing. We've got the Israelis organising the Americans, this Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, and they're sending the aid in. So their argument is that Hamas... I'm not there. I haven't got the evidence that Hamas has been stealing aid. They're the ones who are stealing aid, using it for power, using it to make money and to fund their forces. So they're sending in aid. Let me finish the question.
Let's just say... Let me finish the question. Let me...
Steve, you can speak as soon as I finish the question.
I'm trying to agree with you, Julia.
Okay, just let me finish the question. It's easier. I could have finished it by now if you stopped talking. Right, okay.
Right. So let's just say for a second you were correct, Julia.
Steve, why... Steve, please, for the love of God, let me ask a question.
People and then murder and then injure another 4,000 people.
Steve,
is that legitimate?
Okay, can you just take his microphone down so I can speak and then you can listen, okay? And then you can speak and I'll shut up when you speak, right? So... They're delivering all this aid. No, seriously, because there's no point. It's a horrible listen. They're delivering all this aid, millions of pounds worth of aid to people, but they decided we're going to deliver this aid and then we're going to play the Hunger Games with these civilians and we're just going to mass shoot hundreds and hundreds, as is claimed by the Hamas-run health ministry, hundreds, and the aid agencies whose doctors are treating these people, hundreds of civilians, babies, children, women, innocent men, trying to get food, and we're just going to shoot them en masse just for fun of it, eh? Why would they do that? What would be the motivation, given the international condemnation that is happening of this? And B, because let's face it, the IDF haven't got a history of being incompetent. We've seen how they've dealt with Hezbollah and the Iran. And B, given that there are 1.5 million mobile phones in Gaza, and so much has been captured on mobile phones. Why is there not one, and I mean not one, piece of footage from any of those civilians or anyone on scene of any of these massacres taking place by the IDF? Your turn, Steve.
Okay, well, first of all, the intention, the clear intention, is to make life so difficult for people that they flee Gaza. Look, this isn't a secret anymore, Julia. The ethnic cleansing of Gaza is a plan. The Israelis have admitted that they want people out of Gaza, okay? Trump's even said it. They want Gaza evacuated. They want to turn it into real estate. Secondly, look, it's not just the Hamas government who are saying this. It's every reputable international organisation that are saying people are being killed daily in their tens, if not their hundreds. Amnesty International, Oxfam, we have the United Nations, we've got every reputable...
Who by?
I've just said.
But why is there no video footage of it?
On the ground. Julie, you said you weren't going to speak over me.
But...
Okay. Amnesty International have got people on the ground. United Nations have got people on the ground. Oxfam have got people on the ground.
And they didn't take any video footage.
International agencies that have got people on the ground that are verifying this. As for the footage,
no one put their phone up and took a video.
Julia, let me finish.
But I asked you the question. You're not answering it. Why is there no video footage? I'm answering you
the question. As for the footage, if you look at Al Jazeera, which is on Freeview, you will see pictures. If you look at France TV, which is on Freeview, you will see pictures of people being massacred every day. The fact is, and that the national disgrace is, that the BBC do not show these photographs. They do not show them.
That's not
fascist Israeli government in their narrative. They give it some credence. No one else does.
Okay, it is not true. BBC, you think the BBC wouldn't show footage and then sort of blur out any death? No, there isn't footage of these massacres because they're not taking place by Israeli
Julia, this
soldiers.
is just a ridiculous argument. You go on Al Jazeera, go on France TV, go on any other TV station, and you will see live streams sometimes, people being massacred, standing, queuing up for food. It happens.
There is one set of footage which actually shows Hamas fighters. This is from quite some time ago now.
No, that was at another location totally.
Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't at the location where it was claimed there had been IDF soldiers shooting.
Who was completely unidentified, probably one of the gangs in Al-Shabaab that the Israelis are working hand in hand with, the Al-Qaeda affiliate Al-Shabaab.
Do you accept that Hamas had been, there's plenty of evidence for this as well, that Hamas had been stealing food and selling it and using it to fund their control over the Strip?
Well, the only people that have said that have been the IDF, okay? So I don't know, right? Let's just say, as you know, let's just pretend that that's true. Let's pretend that that's true. Mm-hmm. Is the solution they make people queue up and massacre them as they queue up?
Why would they do that?
They had 4,000 injured.
Why would they? You say so they will flee Gaza, but they're stopping them fleeing Gaza. They've got borders that stop them fleeing, as have the Egyptians. Interestingly, I wonder why that is.
What they want to do is make life so miserable for people in Gaza that when they do eventually give them an option to flee, that most people will take it. And you know, I have to take my hat off to the absolute spirit and determination of people who are in Gaza fighting for their land. I don't think I could do it. I think I would try to get my children out of there. I mean, it must take.
Most Palestinians have left and they've gone to countries like Jordan where they're living in a perfectly peaceful life and having. I mean, wouldn't it be better?
So you agree with ethnic cleansing then?
Oh, I think you'll find
that. You agree with ethnic cleansing?
Okay, you can keep repeating the question, or you can let me answer it. Okay. I think you'll find that as a general rule, well, actually, in huge number of occasions, it's happened in Yugoslavia, it's happened in Cyprus, it's happened in many, many, many countries since the First and Second World Wars, that actually moving whole populations has actually been, quite a common thing over the years when it comes to ethnic fighting. If I were an Israeli, would I be willing to put up with Hamas-run Gaza on my border after what happened on October the 7th, 2023? Abso-bloody-lutely not. In which case, it's untenable for people in Gaza to remain under Hamas leadership. If they're not going to get rid of Hamas, or if Hamas isn't going to lay down their arms and then they're urged to, their declared statement that they want to annihilate Israel and all of the people in it, I don't think it's tenable for those people to remain. No.
That's just, first of all, it's just not true. It's a completely false premise. Hamas wants to get rid of the Israeli state, which is something completely different.
They want to kill all Jews.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
They literally said, the Hamas leadership literally said a few days after October the 7th, there's video footage on national television.
Let me answer your point directly.
But you can't just lie, Steve.
If I was to say to you, okay, the problem is, since 1948, the Israelis, the IDF force came out of terrorist organisations, the Haganah and the Irgun, which actually murdered British troops in the St David's Hotel.
It's a conscripted national defence
Hotel, you would know that. And from then on, they've terrorised the Palestinians. They've killed thousands of them every year, whether it's a declared war or not. Even in the West Bank, where Hamas are not in control, we see settler violence encouraged by the government, and the government continually stealing more and more Palestinian land.
I have very big issues with what's been happening in the West Bank. I concur with that.
This is so. If I was to put it the other way to you, Julia, if I was to say to you, the solution to this is to move a whole population. Well, if I was to say to you, well, let's all move all the Israelis back to Eastern Europe or back to New York or New Jersey, which the vast majority of them came from. Very few of them have got Semitic genes at all. They're not.
That's again completely made up nonsense.
No link to the occupied Palestinian
territory. They do. I mean, I'm sorry. There's never been anywhere called.
You'd be outraged, wouldn't you?
No, because the Jewish people have a right to a homeland, same as everyone else. If the Palestinian people, but the Palestinian leaders over decades have been offered the two-state solution and keep turning it down because they want a one-state solution, the Palestinian leadership, which is they want the land of Israel. Israel is a tiny, tiny, tiny strip of land in the whole of the Middle East. There's plenty of places for people to live in the Middle East, but they want to have that one little bit. This is about the annihilation of Israel and the Jewish people. It's not about the rights of Palestinians. Palestinian people in Gaza could have been living a wonderful life. They could have had that real estate that Donald Trump talks about if they weren't ruled by extremist terrorists whose main aim in life is killing Jews. It's the fault of the Hamas terrorist leadership and the support that the population gives them. That is the problem, not Israel, I would say.
Julia, Hamas didn't exist until the 1980s. Hamas only came about because of the horrible way that the Israelis treated the Palestinians. Yeah. Hamas didn't exist. In fact, Netanyahu funded Hamas. He funded them, and this is on record. This is not me saying it. Google it. Netanyahu funded Hamas to sow division within the Palestinian communities to undermine the PLO leadership.
There's been a lot of things have happened over the years. But if you're really worried about babies and children and innocent women and men dying in Gaza right now, I would say the number one priority would be to oust Hamas. Yeah.
Well, I think the number one priority would be to oust Netanyahu and his murderous fascist Israeli government.
So a democratic government is the problem, not the terrorists of Hamas.
But the Israeli government is a terrorist government, Julia.
It's not a terrorist government. It's not a fascist government. You throw these words around and they're meaningless. You genuinely don't think. Do you think it would be a good thing or a bad thing for the people of Gaza if Hamas were ousted completely and were gone from Gaza? Good thing or a bad thing?
I think it would be an absolutely brilliant thing if Netanyahu...
No, I didn't ask you that.
I will get to that.
No, don't get to that. Just answer the question I asked you.
The people of Gaza can determine their own fate.
Well, they had an election in 2005 and they elected Hamas. They haven't had one since. Would it be a good thing or a bad thing for Hamas to be ousted from Gaza? Good thing or a bad thing?
I think if the people of Gaza decided their own fate, that is what we have to respect. And I think that people in the West...
So should Hamas hold elections?
Are not going to help.
Should Hamas hold elections?
Well, they don't hold elections.
They don't. I didn't ask you that. Should Hamas hold elections?
Yes, of course.
And do you think the people of Gaza would vote for Hamas as a terrorist organisation?
I think at this time, I'm not sure what they would vote for, but I have to say that the fact that they're being massacred in their hundreds every day, the fact that
Hamas claims they're being massacred in their hundreds.
And shot
shot by the Israeli terror forces, Israeli genocidal forces, I think that would not help people in Gaza.
No.
And
do you think it would help people in Gaza if Hamas
when we
weren't
have got rid of a
attacking
genocidal
Israel?
government in Israel, then perhaps the people of Gaza will choose a different government in Gaza.
You think they would? Do you think there's any hope that we're talking about Donald Trump messaging last night about possible 60-day ceasefire between Israel and Hamas? He says Israel have accepted it, whether or not Hamas would agree, whether the terms would be agreed on both sides, that actually if you could actually come to a point where there was no longer the threat of an attack on Israel, do you think it's possible that Israel and their supposedly, as you call it quite wrongly, genocidal fascist government would not be therefore sending their forces or rockets into Gaza and would leave people in Gaza alone to just rebuild their lives?
Well, Julia, we'll go back to the West Bank, Gaza.
Let's talk about Gaza.
The West Bank, there are still genocidal forces running through the West Bank, killing people on a daily basis. The genocidal forces of the Israeli government. Right. I hope that there is a ceasefire. I really do hope that there's a ceasefire. But we have to look at it. The reality is that Israel have attacked every country around them in the Middle East.
No, they haven't. They've been attacked by every country around them, and they have fought a war, and they have won each one. They have not attacked. No, they haven't. They were attacked. Every war they've been in, Israel was attacked. You're simply making stuff up now, Steve.
I'm not making stuff up. Every international observer would tell you they continue to strike Syria. They continue to strike Lebanon. Even though there's a ceasefire,
they're attacking Hezbollah forces within Lebanon who've attacked them.
Parts of Lebanon illegally under international law. They occupy parts of Lebanon. They occupy parts of Syria.
Yeah.
The Gaza Strip used to belong to Egypt. Did you know that?
Well, why doesn't Egypt open their border and take all those people in?
Because they don't. I'd imagine
they don't want them.
The pressure in Egypt is that they don't want to be involved in ethnic cleansing. They don't want to have an exchange.
I'm going to have to leave it there, Steve. But please get a dictionary and look up the word fascist, look up the word genocide. So next time we can have a more coherent conversation. Steve Hedley, pro-Palestinian activist, trade unionist. This is Talk. Have to go to a break.
They promised stability.
They said the grown-ups are back in charge.
I was so happy you just couldn't believe.
Our work is urgent, and we begin it today.
I mean, you couldn't really scrape together a worse gang of misfits to run a dog kennel.
Broken promises.
Billions blown.
Botched U-turns.
And Britain is burning.
One of the most immeasurably eventful.
1 year in power.
And Britain in freefall. It's just been a disaster.
1 year of chaos.
Friday, 4th of July.
9 p.m.
Across the UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker. On your smart TV. And on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk the Home and Common Sense. We're supposed to get another guest in before the top of the hour. We're going to talk to Tony Smith, the former head of UK Border Force, a little bit later in the next half hour. And big thanks to Tony for waiting on the line. Huge apologies to him. But as you can imagine, wanted to carry on the conversation with Steve Hedley. I know I interrupt him. It does take a lot of time to get a question out because he just will not listen to a question. But Claire Pearsall, listening to all of that. I mean, with all due respect to Steve Hedley, a lot of the stuff he says is just simply factually untrue. Yeah. And he uses words like genocide and fascist. Again, utterly meaningless in this context. I mean, unless we just change the meaning of these words, they're irrelevant. What did you make of him saying, look, you know, the distraction of Glastonbury and Bob Villan taking away from the importance, he says, of the claims from Hamas? They are claims that hundreds of people are being killed in Gaza by IDF forces.
And that's the argument that's being used on every side when you start talking about this. And you cannot call for death of individuals and think you can get away with it scot-free.
Especially a conscripted military force.
Any military force. I don't subscribe to having that other than terrorist groups. Quite happy for those to be wiped out. Yeah. And
I think that's official government policy, isn't it?
Yes. And I think that Steve needs to be able to condemn Hamas, which he didn't manage to do throughout your entire interview.
I really did ask him quite a few times.
You did.
But it's interesting, you mentioned that, I mean, the forces, like, you know, I don't even want, like, Russian conscripts to die because they're forced into the war as well.
Exactly.
And again, he was talking about this idea that these people, you know, we've had Bob Villan, the rap duo, saying, oh, you know, we're exposing this and we're being, because we're talking about this. No, it's talked about non-stop. I mean, you know, the senior figures at the BBC talk about this stuff non-stop. Do you think Tim Davies is going to keep his job?
No, he shouldn't.
Well, there you are then. There you are then. End of that. It doesn't look like... No, it's looking pretty shaky, I have to say. You'd think he's quite a good egg, but, you know, if you're not going to actually do the deed of actually stopping the anti-Semitism at the BBC, maybe you're not the right person for the job. But I was very intrigued by Diane Abbott branding the IDF the Jewish Defence Force, saying the quiet bit out loud, as she often does. Up next, we're going to talk about PMQs. This is Talk.
Is it transphobic to say only women have a cervix?
Well, it is something that shouldn't be said. It is not right. A woman is an adult female, and the court has made that absolutely clear. I actually welcome the judgment because I think it gives real clarity. It allows those that have got to draw up guidance to be really clear about what that guidance should say. If you want to fight for Remain, vote Labour. Now, there are some who say we don't need Brexit to work. We need to reverse it. I couldn't disagree more. Day after day, there are new allegations of sleaze, of favours, of privileged access. And it's all very well the Prime Minister saying, well, say now, well, I'm paying for it.
You've decided to repay £6,000 worth of gifts.
Lord Ali is facing an investigation. I wonder how concerned you are that your biggest donor was not fully transparent.
Are you saying you made a mistake?
It was right for me to make those repayments. Thank you. Of course, I wouldn't want Donald Trump round for dinner, but don't underestimate the danger to the world if Trump is re-elected this time around. I'm anti-Trump. I would like to send my warmest congratulations to President Trump on his inauguration as the 47th President of the United States.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good afternoon to you. It's just coming off 2 minutes past 12 o'clock. We're heading for PMQs here at Talk, the home of common sense. We're the antidote to idiocy and the home of common sense. I'm not sure how much we're going to get in the House of Commons. Keir Starmer's already on his feet for a Prime Minister's question. It's its first in quite a few weeks. First clash with Kemi Badenoch in quite a few weeks. We're going to get the reactions of Claire Pissell and Peter Cardwell to that. Also coming up in this hour, there's no doubt will come up at PMQs, this extraordinary welfare defeat stroke victory last night. But also going to be talking about Donald Trump visiting the new Florida detention centre dubbed Alligator Alcatraz. Is that what we need for our asylum seekers and failed economic migrants here in the UK? Plus the Bank of England is accused of wokery yet again, planning to drop having historical figures such as Winston Churchill or Jane Austen on banknotes and trying to sort of reflect modern diverse issues. Deep sighs, everybody. Before we get to the chamber, they will take obviously live questioning between Kemi Badenoch and Keir Starmer. But he's been yapping away, I've got to be honest, the Prime Minister, for quite some time already. Delighted to welcome Peter Cardwell to the studio, talk presenter, political commentator, and star of a kneecap video.
Finally made it, Julia.
The act that everyone was concerned about at Glastonbury. Well played. And of course, Claire Pissell, former Conservative Government Advisor, also here. Now, I will very rudely interrupt you as soon as Kemi Badenoch is on her feet. But Peter Cardwell, absolute shambles last night, utterly humiliating defeat ahead of just the first anniversary of this Prime Minister in office. How bad was it, though?
It was just total shambles. Even 90 minutes before the vote, there were further concessions. The title of this bill is the Universal Credit and Personal Independence Payment Bill. There's nothing in it now about the personal independence payments, and the net result of this thing, which was meant to save £5 billion, will now be that it costs £100 million a year. It's absurd. Yeah, it absolutely is extraordinary. In fact, it's very interesting to note, I think I can see Rachel Reeves sitting and Angela Rayner sitting either side of the Prime Minister, flanking him. Let's go straight to the House of Commons right now.
Mr. Speaker, can I first of all take this opportunity to congratulate the member for Rochdale for being the toady of the week, helping the Prime Minister. We all know
There's a lot of people wanting to catch my eye today. There is some free hits on this side. I won't waste your opportunity.
It's been a difficult week for the Prime Minister. So let's start with something simple. Can the Prime Minister tell the House how much his welfare bill is going to save?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, let me start by saying free school matters on this side of the House. Mr. Speaker, in relation to welfare, what we delivered last night was a bill which ends mandatory reassessment of those with severe disabilities. That is the right thing to do. It rebalances universal credit. That is long overdue, and it sets out a pathway to reform of PIP. Mr. Speaker, it's consistent with the principles I set out throughout. If you can work, you should work. If you need help into work, the state should provide the help. The system that they broke doesn't do so. And if you can't work...
I think there's one or two I can spot immediately. Usual voices, same names, please. It's too early to leave the chamber. Prime Minister.
And, Mr. Speaker, if you can't work, you must be supported and protected. The reformed welfare system that we're putting in place will be better for individuals, better for the taxpayer, and better for the economy.
Mr. Speaker, I don't think the Prime Minister actually watched what happened in the House yesterday. His bill was completely gutted. A U-turn in the middle of the debate, removing Clause 5. Where on earth was he? The reason why he can't answer the question is because he knows it doesn't save any money. It's going to cost millions. This is the first Prime Minister in history to propose a bill to save money who ended up with a bill which costs money. So if the bill doesn't cut welfare spending, can the Prime Minister tell the House how many people it will get into work?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm glad she asked that because it gives me the opportunity to say we've already started changing the job centres and investing in support back into work. The Trailblazer scheme, which is doing exactly what she asked me, which is getting people back into work. The bill last night will help people back into work, and of course the Timms review is ongoing. But I tell you what won't help people back into work, what won't help control the costs, and that is voting to keep the broken system. And that is what they did last night. Everybody in this House accepts that the current system is broken. It invites the question, who broke it? They broke it. And last night, they voted for the status quo. The broken system is their policy. That won't help individuals, taxpayer, and it certainly won't help the economy.
Mr. Speaker, I'll tell him what we did on welfare. Yes, they can laugh. While they're laughing, they don't know my party delivered the biggest reform of welfare in government. We got record numbers of people into work, including millions of disabled people, and we cut the deficit every year until COVID. The fact is, we're not scared of doing difficult things on this side of the House. We got people back into work. What he forgets is that since the election, since he became Prime Minister, an additional 1,000 people a day are signing on to incapacity benefits. That is 50% more than under us. 50% more than under us. And, Mr. Speaker, astonishingly, because of the mess they made yesterday, because there are no more savings, sickness benefits alone are set to rise to £100 billion on his watch. He cannot reduce that now. He cannot reduce that now.
Mr. McKee, I think we've had a run-in before. I certainly don't want any more. Seriously, you're obviously not getting your timing right because I can hear your voice every time.
I'll start again, Mr. Speaker. Start again. Sickness benefits, louder for those at the back, sickness benefits are set to rise to £100 billion because of their mess. They cannot now reduce it. They can't reduce it because after last night's humiliating U-turn, we know he cannot control his MPs. They're cheering now, but you signed the amendment. You signed the amendment. Over 100 people signed that reasoned amendment until the bill was completely gutted. He said that he would take the difficult decisions, but isn't the reality that he is too weak to get anything done?
Mr. Speaker, I'll tell them what they did to the welfare system. They broke it. And it's the same as the NHS. What did they do? They broke it. Same as the economy. What did they do? They broke it. They broke everything that they touched. And now she describes the broken system that we are trying to fix. What did she do? She voted against fixing the system that they broke. And I'll tell you, Mr. Speaker, and spell that out, they voted last night for the system that is keeping 1 million young people not learning or earning. That is a disgrace of their system. They voted for a system where we have 3 million people out of work on ill health, and they voted for that system. We're fixing it. We're clearing up the mess that they left, just like we're clearing up the NHS and the economy.
He's got some brass neck. Has he read the papers this morning? Has he read the papers this morning? That bill will achieve nothing. It is a pointless waste of time and is absolute proof that he doesn't have a plan. Let me tell the House what's going to happen. In November, the Chancellor is going to put up our taxes to pay for his incompetence. We on this side of the House know that you can't tax your way to growth. But people out there are frightened. People out there...
More putting taxes on.
Yes. These are the same people who cheered when they talked about the NI rise and the jobs tax. Why are they complaining now? People out there are frightened. Can he, Mr. Speaker, can he reassure them by ruling out tax rises in the autumn budget?
Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, she knows that no Prime Minister or Chancellor ever stands at the dispatch box and writes budgets in the future. That isn't what they did, it isn't what we did. And she knows it. But she talks about growth. For 14 years, we had stagnation, and that is what caused the problems. And I'm really pleased, Mr. Speaker, to show the progress that we're making. I can update the House. Last week, Amazon put in £40 billion of investment into this country, one of the biggest investments of its time. That brought the inward investment to £120 billion in the first year of this Labour government. Mr. Speaker, I can also tell the House that business confidence is the highest for 9 years. That's longer than the whole time that the leading opposition's been in Parliament. And the figures this week demonstrated and showed we had the fastest growth in the G7 in the first quarter of this year. What a difference to the mess they left. That's the difference a Labour government made.
Mr. Speaker, he talks about jobs. Unemployment has risen every month since Labour took office. Has he spoken to Nissan, by the way, and looked at what's happening there? This man has forgotten that his welfare bill was there to plug a black hole created by the Chancellor. Instead, they're creating new ones. They're creating new ones. She looks... Mr. Speaker, she's pointing at me. She looks absolutely miserable. Labour MPs, yeah, she looks absolutely miserable. Labour MPs, they can point as much as they like. The fact is, Labour MPs are going on the record saying that the Chancellor is toast, and the reality is that she is a human shield for his incompetence. In January, he said that she would be in post till the next election. Will she really?
Prime Minister. Well, she certainly won't. Mr. Speaker, I have to say I'm always cheered up when she asks me questions or responds to a statement, because she always makes a complete mess of it and shows just how unserious and irrelevant they are. But she talks about the black hole. They left a £22 billion black hole in our economy, and we're clearing it up. And I'm really proud, Mr. Speaker, that in the first year of a Labour government we got free school meals, breakfast clubs, childcare, got £15 billion invested in transport in the North and the Midlands. We're cutting regulation, planning and infrastructure is pounding forward, building 1.5 million homes, the biggest investment in social and affordable housing, and of course, Mr. Speaker, the 3 trade deals. Remember the ones that they couldn't get, including the US trade deal. On Monday, those tariffs came down. That secured the jobs at JLR. That's who we care about on this side of the House.
How awful for the Chancellor that he couldn't confirm that she would stay in place. He talks about this year in office. This week marks the first anniversary of Labour coming into office. And let's have it. Yes. The whips can't get them in the lobbies, but they can get them to chair at the right time. The fact is, his own MPs are saying this government is, and I quote, incoherent and shambolic. That's Liverpool Wavertree that said that. I could go on and on. But the fact is, it's been mistake after mistake after mistake. There is no plan to get people into work. There is no plan to cut the welfare budget. There is no strategy. There is just a series of humiliating U-turns like winter fuel, like grooming gangs. Mr. Speaker, what's really shocking is that every other party in this House voted for even more welfare spending yesterday. Yes, those MPs behind him and the Lib Dems and Reform. The Conservative Party believes that this country needs to live within its means. We know what we believe, Mr. Speaker, but this is a Prime Minister who has U-turned on everything he's done in office, including his own speeches, because he doesn't know what he believes. With left-wing Labour MPs now running the government, isn't it working people who will now pay the price?
Mr. Speaker, this is why she always cheers me up. She talks about living within their means, having left a £22 billion black hole. Mr. Speaker, she talks about the first year. I'm really proud of our first year in government. We promised, Mr. Speaker, 2 million extra NHS appointments. We've delivered 4 million. A promise made and a promise delivered. We promised the biggest upgrade to workers' rights in a generation within the first 100 days. Promise made, promise delivered. We promised free breakfast clubs. That's a promise made and a promise delivered. Banning bonuses for water bosses who pollute our rivers. That's the mess they left. A promise made and a promise delivered. Creating GB Energy. A promise made and a promise delivered. The largest increase in defence spending since the last Labour government. A promise made and a promise delivered. Putting more money in the pockets of working people, particularly the 3 million who are the lowest paid through the national minimum wage. A promise made and a promise delivered. We're only getting started, and the Chancellor's led on all these issues, and we're grateful to her for it.
Natasha Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Wow. Well, what an exchange. I don't think it's really up for debate there. Peter Cardwell and Claire Pearce are joining me in the studio here at Talk, listening to that was an absolute knockout very early on, and then repeated again and again by Kemi Badenoch. Keir Starmer looked very, very I would say chastened, sort of kind of almost like, unsteady on his feet. You've just showed me a video of him.
He was walking out of Downing Street and stumbled slightly, and he stumbled many times during that during those discussions and during those questions. He really just was totally outclassed.
£22 million black hole.
Yeah, just keep saying
that.
Just keep saying it.
Even just now, what was really interesting, now I don't know if you were listening, if you were watching, you would have seen, but if you were listening, you wouldn't be able to see. But it's interesting that on the fifth question, Kemi Badenoch saying that the Chancellor looks absolutely miserable, and saying the Chancellor is toast. I have to say, Rachel Reeves had bags under her eyes like she's not slept for like 3 weeks. She's been at Glastonbury, I don't know. But she genuinely looked like she was about to cry the whole way through that. Did she not, Claire Pearson?
Yeah, she really did. And unfortunately, she was slumping in her seat, which just made it worse. Those benches are really uncomfortable to sit on, but you have to make the effort to sit up straight. And I think if she did that, she'd lift her whole persona, but she just looked defeated.
And yeah, you can talk about appearances, but look, we were talking about a humiliating countdown by the Prime Minister yesterday, Peter, not being able to get this bill through. We now know, look, a bill that was supposed to save about £5 billion is going to cost a few $100 million. It was going to save £5 billion from the burgeoning, exploding welfare bill. So at some point, taxes are going to have to go up. I don't think you can even do spending cuts.
And Rachel Reeves knows that. Rachel Reeves knows that. She's sitting there knowing that there is pain ahead, that she is going to have to stand up in October, November time and completely and totally contradict what she said a year previously, that taxes were not going to go up on working people. They did anyway with national insurance.
Well, don't you think that the key phrase there from Kemi Badenoch, where she said the Chancellor is toast, she's a human shield
for his incompetence. I wrote that down.
And then Keir Starmer was asking her, will she survive till the next election, and he wouldn't confirm that.
Yes.
He's made a joke. She
won't. Yeah.
Referring to Kemi Badenoch.
And another huge thing. Bringing Keir Starmer coming into the House, loads of MPs, backbenchers cheering him. These are the people who last night made his life pretty much impossible. And there was a great line when she talked about a year on from Labour's victory. Kemi Badenoch talked about that, and she said the whips can't get them in the lobbies, but they can get them to cheer at the right time.
Yeah.
That's just going to be played over and over again.
Absolutely.
Because they sharpened their knives last night, and then this morning they're saying, oh no, Keir Starmer is wonderful.
Now I would say, Claire, you're a Conservative. Okay, you work for the Deputy Speaker, but you were in the Home Office as Special Advisor. Look, that was an open goal. That was an open goal for Kemi Badenoch. But sometimes we do see leaders of the opposition don't score when there's an open goal, and they manage to sort of fumble it. I thought she was incredibly sure-footed. She seemed to be on top of it. Look, one thing we always do when we have these conversations, we're always very clear and very open. If you think Keir Starmer won, I'll say I think Keir Starmer won. He looked so much on the back foot, and it almost felt to me like an awful lot of those Labour backbenchers who inflicted this defeat on him are feeling a little bit worried over how this looks. And Kemi Badenoch saying, have you seen the papers today? Because how this is being played out is not good for the government long term.
No, it isn't. And Kemi Badenoch has actually played a blinder today. She needed this to be good, but I think she has exceeded my expectations, that's for sure. She has done a sterling job at pointing out.
And there was a lot of how bad off-the-cuff stuff as well. It wasn't just scripted.
And it was when there was a lot of noise and the Speaker told somebody off for heckling, and she said, I'll start again. Fair play to her. Yeah. She gets a second crack at the question she was asking, and it's more that she looks in control. Keir Starmer looks on the back foot, and he looked really, really rattled.
And of course, you get your clip on the evening news. You don't want to ruin that. But this is one of the things I do like this Speaker. I've got some big question marks about Lindsay Hoyle's expenses and his travel and things lately. But so much. Not John Bercow. Tick. But I do get annoyed when speakers interrupt. Now, of course, if you're in the chamber, if you're actually in the chamber, not even sitting above it in the press gallery, which I used to do every week, you can get to the point where you can't actually hear the question. The noise is so loud. But this telling off in the middle of answers is so frustrating to listen to, isn't it, Claire?
It is frustrating to listen to, but I think what you don't pick up on the microphones is what the heckle was, how loud it was, and how many other people are joining in. And that's what the microphones don't pick up. So I do think it's incumbent upon the chair to actually keep the order. That is what they're there for. So I will actually...
You'll defend that.
Defend that one.
Peter, Kemi just kept coming back on about, this is incompetence by the government, tax is going to go up, a bill that's supposed to save money is now going to cost money. She talked about the Prime Minister having some brass necks, saying he doesn't have a plan. Taxes going up in November. Criticism of it was quite wide-ranging, but all based on the same point. And the reality is, this is how most voters are going to see this. There'll be people, I mean, the Labour backbenchers feel very pleased with themselves. They feel they've saved some money, saved cuts to disabled constituents. In fact, the point, this was supposed to cut money for people who shouldn't be on disability benefits, not people who are severely disabled and need them. But at the end of the day, they clearly don't understand the magic money tree. One more shake ain't going to provide enough money for the welfare
Well, exactly,
payments.
and they're going to have to put taxes up. But Kemi Badenoch
They're going to have to deal with that.
Yes, they are going to have to deal with that, and I think Rachel Reeves' authority is draining away even more so than Keir Starmer's is. I think she knows that, and she has to be toast.
But he wants to keep her there because she is, as Kemi Badenoch says, his human shield.
Well, he has subcontracted economic policy to her completely. He has no real interest in it.
Or understanding.
He's interested in prancing around the world and being never here.
Well, I mean, she was an economist at the Bank of England for 10 years, and she wasn't. No,
yes, most of 10 years. I'm most of 10 feet tall, by the way. No, the thing with Rachel Reeves is that she has no authority anymore. But if you get rid of her, well, the buck stops with him. And people have been talking about Rachel Reeves. People have been talking about Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff, this week. Well, actually, it all reflects on Keir Starmer. Kemi Badenoch did what she's there to do, which is opposing. She had her best PMQs ever today.
Absolutely, you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm normally very, very critical, but she did a very, very good job.
Absolutely. Now you're leaving us now, Peter, but you're standing in for Ian Collins at 1 o'clock. I think the heat finally got to him. Maybe he's just going to enjoy sitting, not being sweltering hot. I think, let's face it, people have only come in this week because we had air conditioning. We could barely get Tom out of the studio yesterday. He was like, no, I want to stay here.
And to argue that you should be in a banknote, Julia.
I should be on a
50.
Well,
20.
When I'm an empress, then I should be on the banknote. I think we all agreed, right?
I think so.
Although, again, I'm going to take a tip out of the Ayatollahs around. I think Supreme Leader.
Supreme Leader, right? Yeah.
Right, let's have a vote on it, like voting McBoatface. Let's have a national vote.
Julia McJulia-face.
Julia McJulia-face. It's all gone wrong. Up next, we're going to take a quick break. Then we are going to be hearing from my guest I didn't get to because I was busy round with Steve Hedley about nonsense claims about what's happening in Gaza. And we're going to be talking to the brilliant former head of the UK Border Force, Tony Smith, about record numbers of channel migrants coming to our shores, despite the boats being stopped and the gangs being smashed. This is Talk.
They promised stability.
They said the grown-ups are back in charge.
I was so happy you just couldn't believe.
Our work is urgent, and we begin it today.
I mean, you couldn't really scrape together a worse gang of misfits to run a dog kennel.
Broken promises.
Billions blown.
Botched U-turns.
And Britain is burning.
One of the most immeasurably eventful.
1 year in power.
And Britain in freefall. It's just been a disaster.
1 year of chaos.
Friday, 4th of July.
9 p.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, and better late than never. Let's talk to our next guest, former head of the UK Border Force, Tony Smith, who we were supposed to speak to about half an hour ago. Has very, very kindly come back on the line to talk about the amazing achievement of record numbers of Channel migrants crossing to the shore in the first 6 months of this year. Very good afternoon to you, Tony.
Good afternoon, Julia.
Thank you very much. Apologies for keeping you waiting after I was rowing with Steve Hedley about Gaza. 20,000 small boat migrants have already crossed this year in the first 6 months this year. It's another record. Yay! Well done, everybody. Goodness knows how high it's going to be by the end of the year. It depends what the weather is like through July and August and September. Labour promised to smash the gangs. Rishi Sunak previously had promised to stop the boats. Neither have managed to do either. How much worse is it going to get?
So it's important we keep calling out these figures, Julia. I'm glad you do keep calling out these figures. They are the only realistic measurement we have of any government success. The ambition from both the Conservatives and Labour has been to stop these flows across the English Channel. They've both failed. And we can only measure it by the numbers that are arriving. As you say, we are now in record territory, already halfway through the year. And some predictions suggest there's going to be a record year this year because we've yet to have the busiest month. So I can imagine people are really, really fed up with this, Julia, and frustrated by constant promises from different governments they're going to stop this from happening when they're not. One point I'd want to make to you, Julia, was I chaired a conference last month in Tallinn in Estonia with a number of other border agencies from across Europe. The European Border Agency were there, and they were showing us slides where, crossing into the EU borders, all their crossing points across the Med, the Eastern Front, across the African route are all down, actually. They have pretty well finally got the, under control.
How have they managed to do that? We know countries, even like Germany, under Angela Merkel, come on in, anyone who wants to in 2015 almost. But Friedrich Merz, the new Chancellor, basically within a day of getting to office went, right, we're basically closing our border to only the most, anyone, unless you are absolutely very, very likely to be someone who is seeking asylum as opposed to economic migrant, you are not going to even be allowed to cross our border. They've, I think, more than a 40% drop in the numbers overnight.
Yeah, they've done it because they're doing things that they won't let us do.
Yeah, well, no, we could do anything we wanted. We're not under the auspices of the EU. But how have the other countries around Europe been able to do it? Because you've still got people leaving, the Middle East and North and Sub-Saharan Africa to get to North Africa to go across the Med. Why are they not coming across in the same numbers?
Well, so the eastern border, we could go out to one of the border crossing points with Russia, and that's shut now. And there's a fence running right the way down the whole of the eastern side with Russia. All of those borders are now pretty well closed, apart from a very small numbers of traffic. They are stopping people from entering. There have been actions taken against some of the countries on that eastern front for breaching the European Convention on Human Rights by not allowing. But they're not allowing people through, Julia, on the land border because they built these great big fences. Yeah. And they won't let them come across.
Can't get in, we don't have to deal with it. But this is really basic stuff, isn't it? It's not about having a nice relationship with Emmanuel Macron, which is what we were always told by Keir Starmer is what was going to solve the issue. And it was the Tories not sitting down around the table with Macron and Ursula von der Leyen. Whereas, of course, it's not in their interest for them to keep these people on the shores, although I've always thought it is in their interest to actually take these people back because these people don't want to stay in France. They've got to a perfectly safe, lovely country where I literally count down the days until I'm going on on a holiday there, but these people don't want to stay there because they don't get the same benefits and help and the right to stay they get here in the UK. So those people probably wouldn't end up in France in the first place.
Yeah, exactly, and that's they would agree with you, Julia. Actually, you speak to the border agencies there. They say that why is it then that the only crossings that are going up are those outbound to the UK? It's because we are perceived to be a soft touch.
Yeah.
Because migrants see the UK still as a somewhere pavement street paved with gold. They think they're going to get a better deal here. They've got family, relatives, heard stories.
They speak English.
So people are crossing the EU borders now, not necessarily to stay in the EU. They're crossing the EU borders because they can get up through the Schengen zone up to the northern Calais, and then they're getting on the boats to come here. So we are really at the moment, I think, paying the price for the fact that we haven't been able to discourage people.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? So much is focused on, whether it's Rishi Sunak or previous, politicians or indeed Keir Starmer, on stopping basically the supply, like number of boats or cutting the gang numbers. Of course, it's such a lucrative business, this, that you just literally, you could actually arrest and imprison every single person involved in people smuggling today. Tomorrow, you'd have them all replaced because there's so much money in it. You have to stop the demand, and the demand is from the pull factors. You can work here without ID. You can do that. Work as a delivery rider. You get your asylum hotel or your hostel or your flat. You're going to be given food and water. You're going to get a few quid as well. And the odds are you'll never be deported. You'll be living here forever. That's why people come. So unless we stop that, we're not going to stop people coming. What do you make of Donald Trump touring that newly built, in a matter of days, Alligator Alcatraz in Florida, ready a deportation centre for illegal migrants? They've arrived in the country, no right to be there. They've been arrested by ICE. They're in this detention centre. They're going to be arriving, I think, from today or tomorrow. And then they're going to be flown back to their own countries. Do we need one of those ourselves?
Yeah. Our detention estate has been decimated since my watch. When I was in UKBA, we had double the number of beds now.
How many did you have then?
About 4,500, going up towards 5,000 on occasion.
But and they were used not for long term. They were just like at the point when someone's arrested, ready for deportation.
Yeah, you've got to arrest people and detain them, Julia. Whether that's in Manston or in the ICE raids we're doing across the country. It's great doing more on those raids, but they're hugely frustrated, those teams. You'll take them into a police station and then there'll be no room at the inn. So you've got to let them go. They're back on bail again, and so you have to detain people. Now, it's probably, some people over there would go at me for saying, I don't know what I am really, for saying you have to detain illegal immigrants. But I mean, it's a fact of life. I spent 40 years doing this. If you don't detain somebody when they arrive and keep them detained for as long as pending removal, once you give them bail and they're out in the community, that is the end of that. So we really desperate. I would turn Manston into a detention centre if I was still head of the border force. The Home Office own that site. You could build a short-term holding facility for 5 days. You could have a long-term hold there. You could have family. I put my border force train. It's massive.
But haven't we had issues where people are being held for a long time, and then the human rights lawyers get involved, saying these are only supposed to be used for 48 hours, for 3 weeks, not for 2 years? And given how many years it does take for a lot of these applications to be processed, and then with all the appeals they're sitting there, that actually, the human rights lawyers would just say you can't do that.
Yeah, well, I think I told you before, I preside over the detained fast-track system, Julia, which we did do, so we put asylum caseworkers in the detention centres with them, and we put courts in there. We were getting them done within a week, because the power to remove detain is linked to the power to remove. So you've got to show the courts that you've got an option of removal, but you have to detain them. You have to get these processes quickly, and you need that removals deterrent, Julia. You've got to have somewhere to send them. We're not sending any of the boat people back. You're getting stories. More people are going back now under voluntary departure.
But we're paying them.
They're not arriving on the boats. You need clear comms. You need to send reporters down there to see people coming off the boats, going to the airport and getting sent away.
Absolutely. But these people are running rings around us. I'm just going to mention this: an Afghan asylum seeker. He arrived in the UK. He claimed he was 15, despite the fact his hair was going grey at the side of his head. He literally had grey hair. The asylum court ruled that the migrant, who came on a small boat after 3 failed attempts, was in fact 15 when he arrived, even though he was found to have been an adult when he arrived. Authorities in the UK said he had an established jawline and lack of youthful glow. We are in clown land.
Well, if you spoke to the officers doing the screening down there at Western Jetful, they would agree with you that this is complete nonsense. I mean, even the man, you don't need specific training to be at a spot. I mean, when they come off the boat, they have to point to a card, Julia, with a number on it, which is what their age is. And they're told by the smugglers to point to something below 18, right? Now, what do we do then? Most of them, we've got to get them through within 48 hours. If a Border Force officer has the audacity to suggest there might be, they go to a separate, very quick screening centre where we're urged to side a sort of caution. We need scientific age assessments, Julia. That was a proposal under the...
Well, lots of Europe does it, don't they? They do testing that's very clear and tells you the age.
Exactly, but they've balked at that. They have not introduced that. We are still waving through people, I'm afraid, who, in my view and your view, if you saw them, would clearly be over the age of 18.
It's absolutely mad, absolutely mad. I mean, I'm a 15-year-old then. It's mad, isn't it? Tony Smith, so good we got to talk to you, former head of the UK Border Force. Thank you very much indeed. Get your thoughts in 0344 499 1000. First up, though, the reunion of the century is just around the corner. We're giving you a chance to win a pair of Oasis tickets in Manchester on July the 19th. Yep, you heard that right. Oasis Live 25 is sold out, but talk can get you in. That's not all. Alongside the tickets, we'll put you up in a hotel for the night and give $5,000 to you to put in your back pocket, completely tax-free. Listen up right now for everything you need to know and how to enter.
On iArcade, you have to be over 18 to enter in the UK, excluding Northern Ireland, for the chance to win a pair of tickets to the most electrifying rock and roll reunion of the century. A hotel stay and $5,000 spending money. Text the word WIN to 83338 by Monday the 7th of July at 11 p.m. and you'll be entered into the draw to go supersonic this summer. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You must have the bill payer's permission or post your name and number to Oasis Prize Draw, PO Box 3190, Colchester CO2 8GP. To arrive by 5 p.m. on the 10th of July. This is a TalkSport limited promotion run on TalkSport, Talk and Virgin Radio UK stations. Full T's and C's at talksport.com. Good luck, yeah? Sorted.
Sorted. Good luck with that competition. It's 12:38. Let's get a quick break. Then we're going to talk about Trump's visit to Alligator Alcatraz. This is Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the Home of Common Sense. For me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Care Pearsall still with us. Just very briefly, I just want to show you something on some footage we've got from Prime Minister's questions. If you are watching, you have a look at this. You might have noticed this during PMQs, but we were commenting on how the Chancellor Rachel Reeves, whose job was not guaranteed by the Prime Minister, very noticeably at PMQs, looked very dishevelled, very upset throughout, very miserable throughout. Even Kemi Badenoch commented on it. It's actually, Paul Brown from ITV is suggesting a tear actually rolled down her cheek while the Prime Minister was speaking, busily not confirming that she'd still be in her job. Suggests, it could have been hay fever, it could have been, who knows, but she absolutely looked like she had been crying. Claire Pearsall, quick reaction to that?
Yeah, she absolutely did. She looks defeated, she looks devastated. I wonder if they'd had an argument or something before they went in.
Do you know what? Rachel Reeves, woman to woman, man the hell up. You're an embarrassment. No, you're an embarrassment. Sit up straight, put your game face on and come out fighting. A woman sitting, I'm the first woman Chancellor, sitting there looking like you're in tears and possibly actually crying in the Commons. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed as a woman that you behave like that. I really am. Sorry. Sort yourself out. Man up. Right, let's get to our next guest. Steve Gill is former advisor to both the Clinton and Bush senior administrations and joins us now to talk about what Trump's been up to in the last 24 hours. Very, very good afternoon to you, Steve.
Hey, Julia, good to be back with you. And yes, she needs to put on her big girl panties and, like you said, man up.
Big girl panties. I love that. Steve Gill, thank you very much. Now, I've come to you a bit late because we've had a bit of a rip-roaring show, as you can imagine. Two big events actually three, actually, for Donald Trump in the last 24 hours. Let's rip through them. First of all, we had the big, beautiful bill, and the US Senate Republicans narrowly passing only with J.D. Vance, the Vice President's swing vote, this big, beautiful bill on spending, which, of course, Elon Musk opposed. What does it actually involve and how significant is it?
Well, first of all, you're dealing in England with the flood of illegal immigrants. And one of the things that they did not do is pass a provision that would have denied 1.4 illegal aliens in the U.S. from continuing to receive Medicaid health care benefits because they allowed a parliamentarian who was appointed by Democrat Senator Harry Reid over a decade ago to rule that they needed 60 votes rather than 51 votes.
Right.
It got 56, but that was not enough to kick illegals off Medicaid. So there are a lot of problems with this bill. Some of it is some of the promises, frankly, from my conservative standpoint, are not being kept. They promised no tax on tips. They're doing a deduction for 2 years. No tax on Social Security. It's a deduction, not an elimination of the tax. So I think there's still problems. It now goes to the U.S. House of Representatives. They're literally meeting right now, trying to merge these two versions together, and a lot of chaos, a lot of clown show yet to come.
Well, absolutely. And we know Elon Musk opposes this. Again, massive piling on to the multi-trillion-dollar debt that the US has. One of the things that people are very happy with Donald Trump doing, though, despite what the media seem to keep trying to claim, is dealing with the illegal migration issue. Huge numbers coming through the Mexican border over recent years. I think some 5 million alone under Jeremy. Where did that come from? Where did that come from? Joe Biden. Really interesting to see the president visiting in Florida with the local governor there to visit Alligator Alcatraz, as he called it, which is a detention centre for illegal migrants before they are flown out of the country. Is this still going down well with the public? Because a lot of people agree with the idea of getting rid of illegal migrants, deporting them. And then when you start having, crying women who've got babies born in America, people seem to change their tune.
Well, first of all, the numbers at the border have changed dramatically since Joe Biden was, out. You were having 20 million or so illegals come across in the last, 4 to 8 years. Now it's almost zero coming. Now it's almost zero coming across the border, thanks to President Trump. As he pointed out, we didn't need to change the policies. We just needed to change precedent and enforce the laws and stop the flood coming in.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some lessons for England there.
Yep.
But what you're going to love, Julia, is Alligator Alcatraz, this facility down in the middle of the Everglades, surrounded by snakes and alligators, has been completed in literally a couple of weeks. It opens today and can house as many as 5,000 detainees. They're also appointing more judges to quickly process people in as little as 3 days to look at, are they a convicted felon? Were they already previously given an order of deportation, in which case they will get them out soon. But best of all, in the most Trumpian way possible, Julia, they are selling merchandise. You can get your Alligator Alcatraz hat or T-shirt. I'm bringing you one of the T-shirts the next time I come to London.
Oh, please do. Just finally, very briefly, I mean, on a major topic, of course, Trump announced on his Truth Social website, social media last night, that Israel has agreed to a 60-day Gaza ceasefire. He said he hopes Hamas will take the deal. He says, for the good of the Middle East. How hopeful are you?
Hopefully it will hold. The good news is they are talking, as you and I have talked before, in negotiations, in peace negotiations. You get progress of some kind when you're talking. When you're not talking, you don't. They've been talking. It looks like they're making progress. And then the Congo-Rwanda peace deal. Trump deserves not just a Nobel Peace Prize. He ought to look like one of those Olympic athletes that has like 7 or 8 of them.
Obama got a Nobel Peace Prize a few months after going into office, but he didn't. There was no peace at all. It was quite extraordinary. He should never have accepted that. Steve Gill, I wish we had longer. I do appreciate you joining us. Former advisor to the Clinton and Bush senior administrations. 12:46 is the time. Up next, Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg, former Conservative business secretary, to talk about the Bank of Wokeness at the Bank of England and spending £500,000 moving the dot in gov.uk. That's up next. This is Talk.
They promised stability.
They said the grown-ups are back in charge.
I was so happy you just couldn't believe it.
Our work is urgent, and we begin it today.
I mean, you couldn't really scrape together a worse gang of misfits to run a dog kennel.
Broken promises.
Billions blown.
Botched U-turns.
And Britain is burning.
One of the most immeasurably eventful.
1 year in power.
And Britain in freefall. It's just been a disaster.
1 year of chaos.
Friday, 4th of July.
9 p.m.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, welcome back to the show. 12:50 is the time. Claire Pistol still here. Get your reaction to what my next guest has to say. Delighted to welcome, it's been a very long time, Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg, former Conservative MP and former Business Secretary, of course, live with us from College Green. A very, very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. It's not that long. I was on with you a few weeks ago, but it's always my privilege.
It's a bit longer than that. Great to have you on. Look, before we get to what I invited you on to talk about, I must ask you about Rachel Reeves. Big PMQs clash between Kemi Badenoch and the Prime Minister today. And Kemi Badenoch at one point actually called out the Chancellor, saying how miserable she looked. There's some footage, and we can play it. I know you won't be able to see it right now. That she looked like she had been crying, but it does appear you can actually see a tear rolling down by the side of her nose while the Prime Minister is speaking, and failing to guarantee she will continue to remain as Chancellor. What do you make of that?
Well, I feel sorry for her. I think if you've looked at her facial expressions at Prime Minister's questions now over several months, she looks in a state of despair and as if the job is overwhelming her. And I think for anybody in the public eye to be in such a distressed state is very sad and very difficult. In a personal sense, I wish her well. I think she's a useless Chancellor, but one wouldn't want anybody to be that unhappy.
Well, I mean, although she's making a lot of other people unhappy with the planned tax rise, you could argue that maybe if she had done 10 years at the Bank of England as an economist and worked as an economist at HBOS rather than in the complaints department and only 5 years at the Bank of England, maybe she would be up to the job better.
That's a very fair point. I don't think she's a good Chancellor. I don't think she's a competent Chancellor. But I feel for somebody in the public eye who is very distressed, and I think that is a sadness, and that people should be kind to her. I don't think there's any point in rubbing salt into the wound at this point.
All right.
You put your views very clearly. I was listening to you, and my goodness, that was the sort of Michael Holding bowling coming in for the Chancellor. But I might leave you to do that rather than doing it myself.
Yeah. Well, OK, you are known for your courtesy in politics. Let's talk, we mentioned the Bank of England there. Let's talk about the Bank of England. They're in the news today. They've been accused of wrong-headed wokery. I think all wokery is wrong-headed. They revealed they want to think about dropping historical figures from banknotes because they want to reflect things like modern diversity. So we've had significant characters, Sir Winston Churchill, Jane Austen, Jane M.W. Turner, Alan Turing, of course, the code breaker, crucial in the Second World War, or key figures in our past who've had a real impact on us. And they're saying that actually we can have a consultation looking at suggestions from the public that would end that, and actually they might look at sort of reflecting gender diversity and ethnicity and disability and things like that. Would you support that, Sir Jacob?
Oh no, it's awful nonsense, and the Bank of England doesn't understand its own job. The point of paper currency is to create an impression of value that is basically false. So the banknote says on it, I promise to pay the bearer on demand. Yeah. That is a lie. It won't pay you anything on demand other than a new banknote. In the period that banknotes have not been based on anything, the value of £1 has fallen to about half a p, a little bit over. So their banknotes have got less and less valuable, and by making them less serious, less patriotic, less symbolic of the nation, they further undermine the value of the paper that they issue. Look at the US dollar. The US dollar is basically unchanged. It's there as a form of stability, as something of certainty. And these silly people with nothing better to do, overpaid in the Bank of England, faff around with the banknotes and undermine its value. It's really silly. They shouldn't do it. They should be fired. We should save the money on their salaries.
Well, I'm with you all the way on that. It is extraordinary, isn't it? And also that sort of people who've been really important historically, like Sir Winston Churchill, should perhaps be replaced. You know, it's always the king or the queen on one side, but it should be replaced by, I don't know, presumably, I don't know, some disabled black lesbian, I don't know, something, community activist. It does just make a mock of this. And again, these are passing political fads rather than a key part of our cultural and historical political identity.
I agree with you. I mean, when I was a child, they had Nelson and Wellington and Shakespeare on the banknotes, the real titans of British society. They've already watered it down a bit with less exciting people, I think, and less pride in our military history and our success as a nation. And they just want to go further. It's basically the Europeanification of it. Look at the euros, which are the most boring banknotes anybody's ever created. Dull as ditch water, because it's not really a proper currency. And I don't know if you can hear me over the siren, but I think the Bank of England's just being as wet as water.
Let's also talk about, you say it's a waste of money. Again, these things always cost money, the consultation and the money always spent. We've also seen money being spent by civil servants. They published a 150-page dossier on how to use the dot in the government's new website logo. It's £500,000 have been spent. £500,000. We're worried about whether or not we can give people operations for cancer, but oh my God, let's spend £500,000 on taking the dot in gov.uk, moving it up halfway, and then making it sort of turquoisey coloured. I mean, this is utter madness that money is being spent on these things, isn't it?
Oh, it's completely stupid. Who cares what the logo for His Majesty's government is? And why can't they call it HM government rather than UK government? It's His Majesty's government. There's no such thing as UK government. It's just all dumbing down. And it's like Consignia and all these silly companies that spent lots of money making themselves look foolish. HM government is a very well-known organisation. People aren't so stupid that they don't know to go on the website to get information with a little change in a dot. It's dotty, you could say.
It's what a lot of people are saying. It is very, very bizarre, isn't it, when we're dealing with so many other big problems. Can I ask your opinion on these welfare reforms? We talked about the reaction in the Chamber at PMQs of the Prime Minister being questioned about his humiliating defeat. I mean, he won the victory last night, but it was a Pyrrhic victory in terms of the humiliating defeat. And his Labour backbenchers, lots of left-wing Labour MPs, now apparently running the country. Do you think Keir Starmer is going to stay the full 5 years in office?
He may do, but I think he's like John Major after the exchange rate mechanism in 1992, that it's such an utter failure of policy, utter failure of leadership, that he will be, in Norman Lamont's term, in office but not in power, or if you prefer to go back to Browning and Macmillan, never glad, confident morning again. That Downing Street is now besieged, it's not a centre of authority, and power has shifted to the left of the Labour Party.
Which we're probably not going to end up very well for us in the budget. Whoever is delivering it.
No, it'll make us all poorer. Whoever's delivering it. Pat McFadden will deliver just as gloomy a budget as Rachel Reeves would.
Indeed, he's definitely vying for that job, isn't he? And just finally, I mean, we know
clearly, yes.
We know when it comes to the to elections, it's the economy stupid always. That old line from that Clinton campaign chief. But it's also, we know both in America and here, it's also an awful lot about immigration, particularly illegal migration. We've got 20,000 small boat migrants have arrived so far this year. It's a record for the first 6 months of the year. The busiest months are yet to come. We may well see another record. This despite Keir Starmer saying he would smash the gangs. Do we need to do something a little bit more than cozying up to Macron along the lines of Donald Trump with, you know, ICE agents rounding people up, alligator Alcatraz or similar to try and tackle this issue?
Well, Donald Trump got illegal migration into the US from the Mexican border down by 91% in April. It can be done. He's shown it can be done. And we need to try to do things like that. There aren't many alligators in Somerset, so I'm not sure that we could manage to do that in my home county. But there must be other things we could do. What we really need is a scheme that people leave as soon as they arrive, that they're flown out to Rwanda or wherever it is. Yep. They can't do these endless appeals. They just leave the country.